Okay, great. Okay, this is calling a special meeting of the City Council to order in order to interview those who are vying for the job of auditor with the City of Palo Alto. So with that, City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Thank you. Councilmember Cormack.
Here.
Councilmember Filsa.
Here.
Chair Ness.
Here.
3 present.
Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure to be holding this meeting. It's taken us some time to get here. I think probably almost 2 years. I'll look at Eric and see if he nods his head. But it's been a long and very intensive process, and I think very deliberately taken. So with that, Jessica, do we have those who are in the audience who would like to speak to us before we start our formal meeting?
Hello, if anybody, any member of the public would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda, please raise your hand in Zoom or hit *9 on your phone. We will wait a few seconds. Chairness, it looks like there are no people wishing to speak.
Okay, in that case then, let's move on to the rest of our meeting. And if I understand it correctly, Mr. Larson, you are going to join us now, and then Pete, you will follow Mr. Larson. Am I correct?
Correct, Madam Chair. Craig Larson with Management Partners. I'll just do a brief overview of the full meeting today, and then Pete will be coordinating and supporting the interview process that you will each be conducting. This session is a critical one, following up on the prior RFP that was released based on yours and the council's direction. As you will recall, we received 6 proposals. All were viewed as responsive and were then evaluated by the evaluation team, consisting of myself, Larry Klein as the chair's appointee, and Eric Filseth as the 1-member council ad hoc committee on the city auditor RFP process. Those evaluation rankings were presented to the committee at your meeting last week, and based on the team's recommendation and the council's committee's thorough discussion and deliberations, you selected 4 firms to invite for interviews today. Those interviews will be occurring after Pete introduces that portion of the meeting. And then following the interviews, we'll take a brief break, and then Pete will share after the break the summary of your collective evaluations and the evaluation team's evaluations. And the real product we desire from the end of the meeting is for the committee to choose 1, 2, 3, or even possibly 4 firms to send the city auditor candidate to the council for interviewing in closed session tomorrow. So that's really the prime deliverable and direction we're looking for the committee. I will also facilitate a discussion with the committee on kind of structuring that council interview, knowing that it's a closed session discussion, so we can't go into too much detail, but I can get general themes and topics and a recommended approach. So we'll do that at the end as time is available. So that lays out the whole meeting. Pete, I'll turn it over to you to go through the interview process in particular, and I will share to the committee. I will remain online listening and observing, but my camera is going to move to showing the timer so that the firms know how long they have left for their presentations.
Greg, one point, we are not doing a closed session today. The closed session is tomorrow.
For the council.
That's why Jessica said we'll need to toggle again, as we've done before, between open and closed sessions.
Correct.
Good, thank you. Pete.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Pete Gonda with Management Partners. I'm the point of contact for coordinating the RFP process. And as you all know, and now for the public's benefit, we sent a structured format to the 4 interviewing firms. This will be a 30-minute interview, the first part of which is a structured presentation timed at 20 minutes. The proposers have been given 4 questions to present on. and they will be briefly introducing themselves and getting right into the presentation. The presentation, strictly timed, will be followed by a 10-minute question and answer period in which 2 questions will be asked of each of the proposing firms by the CAO committee. There were a couple of requirements for the proposing firms. One was that they provide a signed certification to the city, which they all have, indicating that they will only participate in their interview and will not observe or receive any information before or after their interviews regarding any of the other interviewing firms. We ask that at least 3 key team members be present with no more than 5 attending. They have all met that requirement. The city auditor should be the one leading the presentation, but other team members may also respond. And those constitute the requirements. I will not repeat that in detail when we jump into the interviews. The firms have all been instructed and provided with this instruction. So the first firm to interview is Eide Bailly. Apparently we've been mispronouncing that name, but it's Eide Bailly, like E-Y-E-D. And they will be represented by a team of 4. And whenever you're ready, we can let them into the meeting.
Unless someone has any objection, please proceed.
I do not see that they have joined yet. Sorry, Greg.
Sorry. Pete, you'll let me
I'm
know
waiting
when
for
to
them to
start the
join the
timer.
meeting.
I have just sent a text to them and they will be joining shortly.
Okay, wonderful. I'll keep an eye and start moving them over when they arrive.
I will read my question exactly as it is written. So everyone hears.
Liz,
Maybe one.
Chairness,
Yes.
you were not on mute at that moment.
Looks like we are waiting for one more person. Okay, the gang's all here. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. This is the Eide Bailly team. I am Pete Gonda with the firm of Management Partners, and with me here is my colleague, Greg Larson. You will see a timer on the screen. Greg is going to start that timer at the beginning of your structured presentation. You may want to pin that timer to pin the video. If you go to the 3 dots up in the right-hand corner of Greg's frame, you should see an option to pin video, and it will be visible to you, and you could mind the time that way. This is a strict 20-minute format, as you've been instructed, to be followed by a 10-minute question and answer period by the council-appointed officers committee. Our margin is slim today, so we would ask that you really take care to stay on point and on time. And I am ready to turn it over to you when you are.
Well, thank you, Mr. Gonda and Mr. Larson, council members. We really appreciate the opportunity to present our credentials today and how we can serve you in performing your function of the internal audit in the city of Palo Alto. If we're successful in that and you like what we do, I would be serving as your city auditor. I'd like to introduce or have them introduce themselves, I should say, my colleagues that will be helping me today with this presentation.
Good morning, everyone. This is Jason Olson, partner with Eide Bailly's Forensic and Fraud Advisory Practice. I assist internal audit quite a bit, giving our forensic accounting role, the nature of matters. I've been at the firm for over 16 years and certainly play a critical role when it comes to data analytics for internal audit purposes, and we'll talk more about that later. I appreciate meeting all of you, and thank you for the opportunity for the conversation.
Audrey, I think you're on mute. We hear you. Oh, I'm sorry, Audrey. I think we're not hearing you.
So sorry.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Skip ahead.
You can go ahead. We can hear you, Audrey.
Oh, you can?
Yes.
Sorry about that. I was like, I'm going to have to cradle this little headset here. My air conditioner went out yesterday, so I have all my stuff not charged. Anyway, I've been with the firm now 2 years. I'm a career auditor. I've been doing internal audit and performance audit 22 years, and I lead our internal audit and performance audit practice for Eide Bailly, and I would be the deputy auditor reporting to David Sundstrom and the council upon approval and as your internal audit department.
Great. Okay, thank you, everyone. My name is Ahmad Ghoraibi. I'm a partner with Eide Bailly. Been doing this for over 20 years. Just a little description about who the firm is. We are a firm with 44 locations in many states. We actually have an international location in India. Over 340 partners, over 2,500 employees. The firm is a top 25 firm. We work with over 1,000 governmental clients. The largest sector of Eide Bailly that we have at this firm is actually servicing governmental clients. I myself lead the governmental audit area, the governmental audits in the Bay Area. I come from the Peninsula office of Eide Bailly. We have 2 offices over here in the Bay Area with many individuals that have governmental expertise that will offer you the experience and the skill set necessary to produce a high quality audit. The firm, we audit cities, we audit special districts, we audit counties, we audit large governments, including states. But it's not just audits. Financial statement audits is what we do. We do all kinds of other stuff. And as I mentioned before, the governmental arena is the largest sector within Eide Bailly. So we do internal audits, we do IT audits, performance audits, enterprise risk assessments, enterprise risk management, data analytics, cybersecurity, internal control assessments. There's various sectors within Eide Bailly that offers all kinds of services to our governmental clients. The firm is very well known within the governmental industry. We have participants that participate on, GASB, the AICPA. We offer training to many of our clients. We're familiar with what you guys are going through with everything that is happening out there in the environment and how COVID is changing, how everybody operates. We understand the impact. We understand, and we'll share with you practices that are out there that other clients similar to you and what they're doing and how they are dealing with situations like those. I mean, one of the biggest items in there, how your budget is going to be impacted, how your tax revenues are going to be impacted, your sales tax, your property tax. Common practices, federal requirements. Many of those cities are receiving federal funds and the CARES Act, and how to comply with these requirements. We provide CPEs and continuing professional education training, to many of our clients at no cost. And you know, as I mentioned before, we are a local Bay Area office that is available at your disposal. Many of us work in governmental arena and understand exactly what this business is all about, and we are in close proximity. Your internal auditor actually is a local Bay Area resident, and that's pretty much it with respect to Eide Bailly. And with that, I'm gonna conclude the answer to question number 1, and you know, hand it over to the city.
Thank you, Ahmad. I hand it over to me, I think,
Okay.
at least for this portion. You've asked me to, you know, what lessons I might have learned about maximizing internal audit value and the drivers that I consider to be most important in delivering cost-effective internal audit work products. Well, the value proposition starts with, at the very start, with risk assessment and doing an appropriate risk assessment. It's a collaborative process that addresses the uncertainty that individuals face throughout the city. We understand that most city departments are likely to be unfamiliar with being a part of a citywide risk assessment or having internal audit conducting reviews in their own areas. This is why we simultaneously seek to understand the city's risks, processes, and concerns, while educating city personnel about the internal control process or the internal audit process. Through this knowledge exchange, we enhance awareness of internal audits value and build trust upon in using effective communication. That keeps the senior management of the city, officials and leaderships. You know, we want to identify what keeps you folks up at night and gear our risk assessment toward that. Throughout our audit process, whether it be risk assessment, internal audit, or conducting follow-up activities, we use the right tools and the resources for the task. We invest heavily in terms of people, in terms of technology, and training. Our people are digitally upscaled and are continually looking for ways to bring innovation to the firm and to our clients. For example, in the past, auditors have typically taken statistical samples of you know, for testing purposes, and you know, maybe 25, maybe 40 items, you know, in a sample, and doing, you know, employing appropriate statistical techniques to apply that to the entire population. Well, that's not what we do. We like using data analytic tools to produce reviews of 100% in our samples, and this saves staff resources and produces more reliable results. Jason, would you like to expand on your use of technology?
Yeah, you bet. David, I appreciate that. Council members, as David mentioned, we built our internal audit capabilities around our experienced professionals in the technology to drive value, efficiency, and effectiveness of our audits that we conduct. Our firm is integrated and leverage technology solutions to enhance the internal audit process to allow for monitoring of key trends to support continuous auditing. I know that's a term that's used quite a bit around continuous auditing, and really that's the value of leveraging data analytics. It's allowing us and our professionals to gain a deeper understanding of the organization and its risk, provide far more coverage of transactions subject to an audit. David alluded to 100% review of transactions versus just testing 20 or 30 transactions. It allows us for advanced monitoring for compliance and other anomalies, more effectively and efficiently testing internal controls. And it also allows us to reduce the number of manual employee time hours by automating certain processes, which the benefit there is it allows us to be more focused when it comes to our audits. For example, we leverage data analytics to provide continuous auditing and monitoring of an organization's payroll, for which they have over 10,000 employees. We leverage data analytics on a quarterly basis to review their payroll data for anomalies within millions of fields of data records to identify anomalies for further vetting. A quick example of this process is where we compare wages, hours worked, overtime, bonuses paid between employees within the same department with similar titles. And what that allows us to do, that allows us to identify anomalies within a peer-to-peer group. And that's just one of about 300 different type of data analytics tests that can be done, from whether it be payroll on the accounts payable side, receivables, you name it. You can leverage data analytics to help us do a deeper dive on transactions, which would allow us to identify anything that stands out and allows for that continuous monitoring and auditing process. In addition to leveraging data analytics as part of the audit process, we talk about experienced professionals that we leverage. These experienced professionals have specific skill sets that provide value for identifying key risk areas and addressing these risks in an efficient and effective manner. A few of these more applicable areas that we have a deep bench that you might be interested in are, I mentioned earlier that I'm a partner in the forensic practice. As forensic accountants, we also have access to digital forensic experts in our field. So anything with respect to investigations, whether it be digital media or it really be accounting transactions that are in question, we have the team that can help you with that type of investigation. And for example, our team also manages a hotline for many clients, and when they have an issue that arises, we're called upon to help investigate those matters and determine what the facts are so that our clients can make appropriate business decisions. From a cybersecurity perspective, we have a great group of professionals that have great proactive and reactive experience when it comes to incident response services should an incident occur, containing incidents, and remediating cyber attacks. In addition to those type of activities, our cybersecurity professionals help mitigate risk through risk assessments, identifying where an organization is at with respect to its current technology, processes, and people when it comes to cybersecurity, because it involves all those things to make sure that we have a good cybersecurity risk mitigation plan. And when it comes to IT auditing, again, another area in which we have some great group of professionals where they're performing on a daily basis an audit of information technology to understand what are the key controls, where are the potential vulnerabilities, so we can put stopgaps in place and make recommendations that make sense for the organization to really enhance the overall controls, whether it be on the information technology side or even on the process procedural side. And so those are just some of the areas in which we have some specific skill sets that I believe the city could benefit from as part of this process. So David, thank you for allowing me to share a few of my thoughts on leveraging our technology and experienced professionals.
Well, thank you, Jason. One of the questions asked how we are able to maintain objectivity in our independence while also maintaining an environment of collaboration with county departments. Or, excuse me, it's 20 years, it doesn't die very easily. I apologize. With the direct reporting relationship to the council, there's no doubt that it's not going to require a lot of explanation of our independence rule. I mean, it's apparent. What isn't so apparent is how we need to get information and partnership and collaboration with with everybody that we're auditing. Auditor, the origin of the word auditor is to hear and to listen, and that's what a good auditor should do. A good auditor is there to listen, to hear what's going on. It's not a we-them situation, it's a we situation out there. Very early in my career, I started working for the CSU as the university auditor for at the time, it was a 20 campus system. And my staff at the time that I inherited was known as the Dalton Gang. That wasn't complimentary, but they wore that moniker somewhat proudly because they practiced what we would call a gotcha style of audit. And it was a little bit difficult, but even though I reported to the Board of Trustees, as did the Chancellor, we were the only two positions in the CSU that reported to the board. I didn't lead with that. I sought to get an understanding of the various managements that were involved in our reviews and build collaborative relationships. By the time I left the CSU, the office had been renamed from Trustees Audit to the Office of the University Auditor. How's that? We went from 8 staff. We went from 8 staff to a total of 20. University presidents were calling me for advice it was a totally different situation. Situations I could go on about forming the office at Orange County, and even though I was an elected official up there, I met monthly with each member of the board. I didn't have to, but that built a spirit of collaboration, and it got me to understand what their concerns were on a one-on-one basis. That's about what I have. A lot more, Audrey, but I don't want to cut you too short.
Thank you, and hopefully you can hear me. I just put my headset back on. So the last question you had was to share the experience we had with transitioning from an in-house to an outsourced internal audit function, and the challenges we may be expecting, and how we can build on knowledge sharing techniques and technologies. So hopefully I can answer all those in this question. But primarily when we will be joining the City of Palo Alto, our primary role and responsibility is going to make that transition as smooth as possible. And we've had a number of clients that have moved from a fully insourced department to a fully outsourced department. And we have found many challenges that, and in fact, I don't even know of a time that we were not successful of moving that entity to a fully outsourced internal audit department through Eide Bailly. So I have some negatives, but they're more positives when you listen to them. You can determine that on your own. But one example that I'll share with you repeatedly through this is a large government entity that I work with that disbanded their internal audit department. Quite frankly, they reported to the audit committee and they did not see that the department was very effective. The work was incomplete. They weren't abiding by their own quality control guidelines. Basically, they were flat out disappointed with the level of assurance they were receiving over the city's key risks. The audit department was told time and time again where the risks were, and the department decided they were going to just do routine audits, have them set every year or every other year, or low risk, they would have them every 5 years. So as their outsourced internal audit department, we went in and over communicated. What are we going to do? What are we going to be looking at? What are our audit programs going to look like? And we've actually received approval 2 years into the engagement, being their auditors. They approve our work programs, which is quite unusual, but we find that it does build that collaborative approach, and they needed that trust and opportunity to be able to earn that confidence and assurance back in internal audit. One of the initial challenges that we will expect with this new engagement is with the department heads. Some of the city department heads may be unfamiliar with internal audit because their departments maybe never even participated in a risk assessment. They may be recalcitrant and not want to have internal audit in their department. So we will be sending requests for emails or requests for data. I'm setting up meetings, and they will quite frankly just go radio silent and not respond to us. So one of the opportunities that we have learned in the past through multiple clients is to have an individual within the city, a city official, such as a city manager, that sends an email to the departments introducing the internal audit function, what our role is, who the individuals are, who the departments will be expecting to hear from. And then immediately we follow up on that and make sure that they are timely introduced to us, their internal auditors, and we set up meetings to sit down with them and engage with them, help them understand what our role is and what their role is, discussing their processes, citywide risk, and get right into the risk assessment and start building out those areas of concern. So we do include the city in all facets of the audit process. We've also put together facilitated sessions, so individuals that report to their department heads and their staff that may have some confusion can attend one of those sessions and understand what internal audit's role is. Also, with this particular entity, it worked very well as we set aside about 100 hours with the audit program, and it was about 1,100 hour engagement. I can say I'm going over 100 hours that the departments we told we are here for
we're here for them. If there was an area that they needed additional services for, we could help them validate their fee structure, do some benchmarking on permit and licensing fees. And several departments took us up on that, and we were able to help them identify increases in a lot of their departments' fee structure, such as Parks and Rec and permit and licensing. And so a lot of areas for opportunities that we would leverage and bring over to the city of Palo Alto, many more that obviously I can't get into in the time frame that we have left. But I did want to provide you with the assurance that we know what we're doing. We've been successful in the past. You have our clients and our contacts. You're free to reach out to them and hear from them firsthand the positive experiences they've had. With that, I know my time is up. Unless you would like me to continue, I would love to share more examples of positive attributes and the challenges that we may face and how we would go about facing those.
We do need to move on to the question and answer period that will be begun by Councilmember Cormack. If there is time for follow-up, we will certainly avail ourselves of that.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Gonda, and thank you so much to the Eide Bailly team for coming and spending this time with us. We certainly appreciate it. My question is, given the scale of your firm and its other engagements, how will you ensure that the City of Palo Alto receives the full benefit, attention, and delivery of services specified throughout the life of the agreement? Feel free to take a moment if you'd like to sort out who's going to answer in the format.
I'd be happy to take that one, David, unless you'd like to start and I'll wrap up.
No, we have 8 minutes. Let's go.
All right. So we are primed and ready to get started on your engagement as soon as possible. We know that it's a bit behind the 8 ball with regards to audits being delivered over the last year, maybe 2 years or more. Looking at your audit reports against your audit plan, it looks like 2 audits were delivered last year. So there's a number of engagements that you may want to clean house and have those completed, or you may want to start over with a complete risk assessment and dig in on where those areas are for a full citywide risk assessment. We do have the bench strength, as Jason Olson had mentioned. We have the IT group, the fraud, the forensics, individuals that are ready to go on this engagement as soon as we identify what those engagements entail, so we can get the right individuals with those skills and expertise on board to execute those engagements. I do want to share with you that we have extended an offer to an individual that will start on August the 10th, and he will be working with me primarily on internal audit engagements. He would be then staffed on your engagement as well. I've known this individual for a long time. He comes in as a very strong internal auditor, career internal auditor. I don't know any other firms that are hiring during COVID right now, and he is the only individual that we did not resend the offer to, and we are hiring more individuals. If we need to, we'll hire more for this engagement. And like I said, I don't know any other firms that are hiring at this time during COVID. We see many opportunities right now with internal audit, and particularly with the City of Palo Alto. We know we're the right firm of choice. We know we're the right fit. We've been through this many times, and the benefit here is that you will have depth in the employees and the skill sets that you have. You're not going to have somebody that's just trying to wing it and figure it out. You're going to have the best and the brightest individuals who have the certified ethical hacker credentials, the certified fraud examiner credentials, who have been previous law enforcement officers, who understand the ins and outs of your organization from a personal perspective, that can come in and relate to and speak and respond to the risks and areas that you have concerns for. Anything else, team?
I would like
just actually, go ahead, David.
I would just like to add, we would consider Palo Alto to be a premier client. This is a new field generally in auditing where it's 100% outsourced right down to the chief audit executive. We have every reason to want to grow this type of practice. And since you're pretty much the first out of the chute on a fully outsourced, I mean, right down to the audit executive, we're going to go the extra mile to make sure that all your needs are satisfied and that this is a very successful practice.
And to add to that, we actually work with city governments that are located in California, not just California, but are in the Bay Area. and not just in the Bay Area, but we are local. So we will be very interactive with the city council. If you guys have questions or if there's anything that you would need from us, we're in close proximity to the city. And then the staffing that is available is familiar with this business. They understand it very well. It's not that they're familiar with just governmental business. They understand the Bay Area, they understand Palo Alto, and they understand what's going on out there specific to California. And we have that expertise, and we'll be more than happy to share it with you.
We do have a second question from the committee.
Some of this is redundant. This is Liz Niss. So if we do select you, it's going to be important for not only your firm, but whomever is designated to us to be visible and available to the city council. So I want to hear about that. And also the committee and city administration, both for general awareness of the organization and to be responsive to requests and issues as they come up. Within the scope of your proposal, how will you ensure that, and even more, address it during the life of the virus, the pandemic?
Well, there's going to be hopefully there's going to be a post-pandemic world. I'm fairly confident there will be. But until then, we will have to use technology to get through to talk to people. Certainly, I would prefer face-to-face any day, any time. My absolute hope is to meet with all city council members as we're preparing our risk assessment, as well as the executive team for the administration of the city. We can't do a risk assessment without getting that level of cooperation and getting one-on-ones with all key people. There's a lot of inherent risk out there that gets analyzed too, which are numbers and facts and figures. But really, what it gets down to is threat analysis and what threats are out there that are keeping the council members or senior executives up at night. We want to do whatever we can to audit those risks and to make sure that there's reasonable controls in place to mitigate any future threat. That's it from. Did you have something?
So I'd like to add to that in terms of how the internal audit team is going to be structured and how responsive are going to be to the city. I think what the city is doing is great, which is having independence in there, of having the auditors report directly to the city council. But then it's at the same time a collaborative approach between us, city council, and management at the same time. And you know, as I mentioned before, Dave is someone who had done this many times before for local governments, the internal audit function itself, and he's quite familiar with the process as to, you know, when you come in as a new internal auditor that is outsourced, there's some sensitivity in there with respect to the departments. Who are you and what are you doing here? And they have to adapt, and we have to adapt, and we've done that in the past. And you know, at the end of the day, we're here to help and make changes if there are changes that are needed. Then at the same time, achieving that level of independence would give us the ability to make that change, track that change, and make sure that we report to you the changes and give you timelines and who's implementing the changes and who's not. So having that liaison, as Audrey had mentioned, would be great. Having Dave in there, having a team that specializes in governmental audits and specializes in governmental business is also essential. And we think as a firm, we would be able to offer you that particular type of service. And I know, Audrey, you had mentioned something about transition and outsourcing the internal audit function to, you know, where it's something that is new. So you may want to, if you don't mind, you may want to elaborate on that as well as to how it went.
I just realized I didn't say what I needed to say. I'll be at every entrance conference, every exit interview. I will be at the city extensively through the entire risk assessment process. And if the council desires, if individual council members desire, I will meet with you individually at your beck and call. I plan on being available.
Same. and my team as well. We recognize that there are multiple layers of clients within clients. And with this, it's city council, it's city administration, it's department heads, it's competing priorities. And your priorities become our priorities. And my team knows that, we know that as a firm, and we are primed and ready to respond to your requests, whether that's via phone call or email.
Thank you so very much. Are there any follow-up questions from the committee? Seeing none. We would just like to thank you so very much for taking the time to meet with us this morning.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Oh,
Thanks,
thank
folks.
you. Enjoy
Nice
your
to meet
day.
you. Bye.
You as
Bye.
well.
Okay, Pete, it's back to you, I think.
So you do have 9 minutes before the next interview is scheduled. We could do a couple of things here. We can allow you the time to prepare your notes if you haven't already done so. We could have that bio break that we talked about earlier. We could request that the next team come in a little early.
And I might also add just a process check. As an observer, I thought it worked well. The firm did go over their first 20 minutes, but I then started the second 10-minute timer at 9 minutes because they had gone over by a minute. So.
You know, Pete,
I'll just add that I don't know that they knew that there were 2 questions in the Q&A. So you might want to tell them when that begins, or if you haven't already, they have 5 minutes to answer the first question.
I will make it clear that there is 5 minutes per question, but they were aware that there were 2 questions.
Oh, okay. Okay, great.
Yes.
And it was their
I
choice how
suggest-
to allocate between, so.
Pete, suppose we take 2 or 3 minutes now and then let the next group begin instead of 9:55 at 9:50 if they're ready. Do you think they are?
I would suspect they are ready.
Does that work for everyone? If so, let's do it, okay?
All right. So we can turn off our video for 2 minutes here while we do some work.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.
Liz, you are muted. Liz, you're muted.
Thanks. I needed to use the other unmute. Pete, I think this is your call at this point.
We are waiting for Councilmember Filseth. And I'm going to go ahead and let them know that the committee is ready.
Thank you.
The next firm, by the way, is Moss Adams.
Maybe they weren't quite ready, right?
This will be a team of 5. I've now sent them, oh, there's Mark.
How about I take myself off mute? Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, Pete, how are you?
Good
morning,
you?
everyone. We have 4 other individuals joining. So if we can give them a second to log in, I spread the good word that you were ready for us. I see Colleen, I see Troy. We're waiting for 2 others, Haley and Steve. There's Steve. And just your Auditor General, that's all who we're waiting for. We did a little test last night to see who had the best connectivity, because you know it's a challenge working from home. Sometimes it's hit and miss.
Mark, we can certainly hear you, but we can't see you.
Oh, you cannot see me. Okay, let's see. Thank you for telling me that. How about, there we go. Thank you.
Mark, and I see that Haley has joined.
There we go.
Okay, well, we are going to get started. Congratulations for reaching this interview phase for the Palo Alto City Auditor Services. My name is Pete Gonda. I'm with the firm of Management Partners. I'm assisting the city with the RFP process. You'll note a big timer in the screen. That is my colleague, Greg Larson, who is, of course, timing the presentation today that you have been informed about. We have a total time of 30 minutes today. 20 minutes of that will be your structured presentation to introduce you and your team and address the 4 questions that have been provided to you. This time limit will be strictly enforced. You may want to go up to the top right-hand corner of this Greg Larson screen and click on the three dots and pin the video. That might help you monitor the time. And after your 20-minute presentation, the committee will be asking you 2 questions. The margin is slim here between interviews, so we ask that you stay on point and on task. And with that, I am going to turn it over to you. Oh, Mark, we can't hear you.
Oh, thank you, Pete.
Here you are.
Haley's going to kick us off, but I see she's having a little bit of connectivity challenge. And so I was just going to ask one question. Was the committee able to receive our presentation ahead of time, or they're going to see it here real time?
They're going to see it here real time.
Okay, great. When Haley is connected, she can chime in, but I'll kick us off because we're just going to do introductions first anyway. So we're super excited to be here. We're going to have our team just introduce themselves real briefly. Colleen, why don't I kick it over to you to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Mark. Hi, everyone. I'm Colleen Rosillas. I'm a director with Moss Adams Internal Audit Practice. And for this engagement, I am your risk assessment, operational, and performance audit lead.
And Troy?
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Good morning. My name is Troy Haas. I'm a senior director in our IT audit and cybersecurity practice. And my role in the engagement would be IT audit lead.
Awesome. Thanks, Troy. Steve?
Morning, everyone. My name is Steve Bicchetti, and I lead our construction advisory group with a focus on construction or contract audits.
And I'm Mark Strink. I see that we'll end with Haley. I'm a partner. I am our national practice leader for government internal audit services. I'll provide quality assurance and supporting you and the team and anything that you need. And then to Haley to introduce herself. Perfect timing.
Got my video to work.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Haley Garcia. I'm a CPA and a CIA with Moss Adams. I will be fulfilling the role as the Auditor General on this project, and excited to be here today.
Awesome, thanks. So you've got 4 questions for us. I'm actually going to kick us off since your first question is about our strengths. And Colleen, if you wouldn't mind screen sharing, awesome. And if you could fast forward to section 1, strengths of Moss Adams. The reason I'm covering this is I'll sort of call myself the architect of our government internal audit practice. And so I'll hit some high points here. So the first is just a brief overview. You can go ahead, Colleen, on some of the high points of our government internal audit practice. So first is we serve 4 primary types of entities: local and state government, higher education, not-for-profits, and tribes. The majority of that is local government, and the majority of that are cities in California. So this is what we do day in and day out. We have a dedicated internal audit team. We are not, to our very esteemed external audit brethren, we are not external auditors moonlighting as internal auditors. This is all that we do. Our team, as you'll see in a forthcoming slide, is specifically asset and risk-based design to be able to bring all of the requisite experiences that you need to serve the full complement of your local government. And then, of course, the proper certifications, experience and best practices so that we can bring ideas to you from elsewhere and find things that make the most sense for the city of Palo Alto. And we are a very established firm. We have a great reputation. I think that we're at the caliber that the city of Palo Alto would expect and deserves. A little bit about our internal audit services specifically. We fulfill this role for multiple cities in California, so this is nothing new to us. The role and structure that you have defined are exactly what we're used to. And we view our role is to help you do what you do better, help you serve your community better. We come at that through the internal audit door, but that's a very broad door and should be. So we're focused on helping you to reduce your risks, to strengthen your controls and compliance, to enhance your performance, efficiency, and effectiveness. And we're trying to do that in a collaborative way that engages all of your organization so that we're building understanding, we're building acumen, we're providing visibility, whether it's at staff, management, committee, council, that we're up-leveling everyone in the ability to do what you do better. As I mentioned, we work extensively with cities in California, the majority of which of these are internal audit clients, and those are either clients that we are the outsourced internal auditor, of which there are several. We're providing services that are outsourced by an internal audit function because they're looking for expertise they don't have internally, or providing internal audit services to cities who don't have an internal audit function. And then we have some other examples. For example, City of Roseville, where we've predominantly provided performance audit services. City of Palo Alto, where several years ago, we helped you with your disaster recovery and business continuity planning. By the way, you had SAP then as you do now. And you can go ahead, Colleen. We're very proud of our team. As I've mentioned, it's risk-based. It has evolved over time. We haven't always looked exactly like this, and we've built it out with the specific design of being able to align with not only the services that you would require, but your primary assets and risks. And so we're ultimately report to the council through the CAOC, again, which is a very common structure. Haley is your Auditor General. My job is to make sure that everything is working to everyone's benefits and do that for all of the clients that we serve in this capacity. And then you'll see we have a lead person, a very experienced lead for each sort of facet of the internal audit, and think of it again as assets and risks. So your external audit, your financial and internal controls, your risk assessment and operational performance audits, your IT audits, your contract and construction audits, and your findings tracking and status reporting, which helps pull this all together. So we have people who specialize in these areas leading this work. You're not having one or two people trying to wear multiple hats. And then we've got a very experienced team of managers, seniors, and staff who work, again, day in and day out on nothing but this type of work for other cities. So this is definitely our cup of tea. And second to last slide here, again, Moss Adams, we've been around for over 100 years. We have over 30 offices in the Western US, 14 of which are in California. We have a very substantial government and not-for-profit practice. We certainly have all the requisite certifications that you need for this type of work. We've worked with all of the relevant standards, again, for this type of work. And we intimately understand local government, finance, and government operations. We have touched every facet of local government. We know how to, again, help you succeed. And then finally, my last slide, please don't just take our word for it. Talk to our clients, our former clients. I've just highlighted 4 here in a way to just represent that all of these tiers are extremely important to a successful relationship. From the CFO, city manager, audit chair, mayor, so the council itself. Of course, we can go down below the CFO and across the organization, city attorney, HR, et cetera. But making all of those relationships work and providing value is what makes this a successful relationship. And over to you, Haley, to tackle question 2.
Okay, so thanks again for having us, everyone. It's exciting to meet you all here. So your second question focuses on how are we going to maximize value? So how are we going to maximize the value of the internal audit function, and how are we going to do it in an efficient and an effective and cost-effective manner? So going through these next couple of slides here, I think it really goes back to looking at what is our core philosophy. We do not look at you as just a client, and this is just another job. This is just a series of projects that we are going to do. Our philosophy is that we are going to partner with the city to help you succeed. If we can provide a wide range of services to you in a wide range of ways to help the city reduce risk, strengthen controls internally, enhance performance, efficiency, effectiveness across the board, It'll allow you as a city to serve your community in a more efficient, effective, transparent, and safe way. With that all in mind, if we look at our internal audit role within the city in a way in which we are your partner, our primary focus will always be on helping the city to succeed. And if that's our focus in everything we do, the value we add will be clear. Going on to hear just a little bit about our comprehensive internal audit program. I think historically out there, internal audit functions have been very narrowly focused. They've been focused on internal controls and compliance. And while I think those are the most important, because that's my bread and butter, that's what I live and breathe, but it is important, but it's not sufficient. We need to look at a broader, holistic approach to serving the city and making the internal audit function cover all facets of the government. So over a period of years, what we do is make sure that we have an internal audit function that brings experienced individuals in to address all functions of the municipal government. From prioritizing activities each year using a risk-based result process, we work collaboratively with you all to develop annual internal audit plans. We do this through two key projects, typically close to right off the bat, is enterprise risk assessment, really understanding the risks to the city, as well as an internal controls review, my most exciting part of the year. And so really understanding the controls, the risks as a whole, lets us develop a plan that spans multiple years where we work with you to have a full complement of people within our dedicated group working with the city. This is just an example. This is one of our current cities in California that is an internal audit client. This just kind of shows the coverage that we achieve over a multi-year period. This is over about 3 or 4 years, and this shows that we touch a wide variety of areas, from enterprises, departments, functions, programs across the city. And this is a great example of how we take a combination of projects to really address the risks, the controls, compliance, and performance all the way across the board. With the current environment that's out there, IT, security is a big thing. So I thought maybe we'd jump over to Troy and have him give a few insights in that area.
Yeah, thanks, Haley. So probably the biggest thing that I would say is for all of these projects, we bring specialists, and especially from an IT perspective, because technology touches all aspects of the city's operations. So as such, we can address IT general controls, as well as PCI, cybersecurity, business continuity, and other IT-related aspects of the technology environment and its operations. Thanks, Haley.
Okay, I'll go over these rather quickly, but other ways or keys to maximizing our value. These are some of the key things that we look at. So focus on priorities that are identified through a risk assessment process. Definitely important. We want to also deliver multiple projects each year that adhere to a schedule and a budget. No matter how small or how large an individual project is, we want to scope it and focus in on the areas that are going to be the most beneficial, add the most potential value for the city. And so we provide very robust risk assessment, internal control reports, et cetera. So no matter how small or large the actual areas that we're looking at, it's going to be beneficial to the city. We also communicate regularly with your external auditor, help reduce duplication of efforts, gain efficiencies wherever we can. Also, as we presented, we work with a lot of cities, and so we can bring best practices and really be able to bring ideas to the table. Not necessarily everything's going to work for your city, but at least we have the ideas to bring. Remaining flexible and nimble. You know, this is a big thing of things are going to come up. You're going to need us at the drop of a hat. Hey, right now I need you to change and we need to focus on this. And we have the resources, the dedicated team, and the flexibility, and not only our scheduling, but our project timelines to be able to do that. And again, policy development is one other thing I wanted to hit on here. While we need to maintain independence as well as objectivity, having adequate policies, procedures, process guides for employees, very key to cities, and we see a lot of our cities struggling in that area, and we're very excited about helping you. All right, next we're going to go on to Colleen to cover question number 3.
All right, I'm going to cover your question about independence and collaboration. So just to start out with, I think this is a common misconception in internal audit that we can't be collaborative if we're going to be truly independent. These are definitely not mutually exclusive, and we really focus on communication as the key to making sure that we're collaborating effectively. So we keep all levels of the organization informed of our audit activities, our progress on audits, what our findings are, and what our recommendations are throughout the development process in 3 main ways. The first is that for all of our internal audit clients, we have a bi-weekly status meeting where we go through project activities, we talk about whether things have come up, we bring up any potential challenges with our projects. The next is that when we are meeting with the governing body that we report to, we're doing regular status updates, we're delivering reports, we're working with you on developing our audit program annually. And then either once or twice a year, we also like to give a briefing to the City Council on our whole program overview and update. It helps them to fulfill their fiduciary responsibility and their duty of care, as well as the governing body. And because our approach is really to focus on outcomes of reducing risk and improving controls and performance, we have a really strong track record of working with our clients instead of on them. And Steve's going to walk you through what our audit process is.
Thank you, Colleen. In this slide, we will briefly cover our standard audit process. In summary, all of our projects follow these standard but very important phases: startup and management, fact-finding, analysis, and reporting. Our process focuses on collaboration, as Colleen and others have noted, and avoiding surprises. You'll notice that during all the phases of the project, we're engaging with the city throughout the project, vetting the facts, recommendations, and overall presentation, which is critical to a successful and efficient audit. We find that collaboration and working together throughout the process maximizes the value of our projects and supports an overall efficient, effective audit process.
And this is Mark again. So just one of the ways you sort of maintain that balance between accountability and collaboration is the sort of the delineation of roles. So audit findings tracking and reporting is a key element of demonstrating progress, where we're defining and identifying and tracking the findings and recommendations. Management is developing the management responses or remedial action, and when those actions have been accomplished. And then we're playing then the role of validating, which we do at various levels, so that we have that collaboration on what is actually being found and being done about it, but we each play our roles, and that requires a lot of communication and collaboration together to make sure that we're demonstrating collectively to you and the council as a whole that you're actually getting a return on your investment. And with that, we'll turn it over to Haley to wrap us up with a whopping couple minutes left, I think.
Yeah, transitioning from in-source to outsource. So this is an area I'm honestly not concerned about, just because I know it is a big transition to transfer from having an in-house operation to an outsourced function. However, we've done this on a variety of scales for many of our clients. There's always some sort of transition. We're very versed in doing it, and it's never really been a challenge. We have identified some keys to success here on the last slide. And what we have identified is that really proactive and transparent communication at all levels, really taking that time to all get on the same page. We need to be open, honest, understand what your goals are. Let's all work from the same information base so that we can have common information versus people focusing solely on a specific agenda. Again, we want to, one other thing we've really learned is achieving quick wins. Let's go in there, identify that low-hanging fruit. Where can we add value right away? Let's get in, let's get some wins, let's get people's support. Finally, one of the other key things is working collaboratively with management, with the participants that are involved from the various programs that we're looking at. a huge thing. Bad news travels very fast. So we want to leave a great impression that we are part of the team. We are coming in. Our goal is to help the city. We're there to bring about improvements, make people's lives easier, improve controls, et cetera. So really showing and delivering that value. And if we can do that, then the transition concerns will be immaterial, because once people start seeing the impact of our internal audit function, hopefully they're going to embrace it.
Thank you. Thank you so
Back
much.
to you, Pete. Yep,
For
thanks.
staying on point and on time. I am going to turn it over to Councilmember Cormack for the first question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gonda, and welcome Moss Adams and team. We're very happy to have you here today. We appreciate your participation in this process. So here is your first question. Given the scale of your firm and its other engagements, how will you ensure that the City of Palo Alto receives the full benefit, attention, and delivery of services specified throughout the life of the agreement?
Haley, why
So
don't
I'm
you
happy.
kick us off? Yep, there you go.
I'm happy to do this as the designated Auditor General. Hopefully, if we get this opportunity, the nice thing about Moss Adams and specifically about our group is that we have a large dedicated internal audit function. Our team of 30 plus people deep do this all the time. Yet we also have all these other expertise. If we come on, I am available, good or bad, to my clients 24/7. I can't tell you how many weekend calls, weekend meetings, or Friday night, 8 p.m. emergency happens, the CFO calls me, a board member calls me. I am available to my clients. We eat and breathe this. This is what we're really passionate about. So many people, everyone on our team shares that philosophy. And so really, if we get this project serving as your Auditor General, you will be my #1 priority. You have my commitment on that. And I will work with the team to make sure to triage that when you need us, we are there. That we communicate regularly, and you're not just hiring me, you're hiring the backing of an amazing team that I've been blessed to be a part of, and I think we would serve you really well. So thank you. Anything to add, Mark?
I would just add that please talk to our clients, but we are super, it's a cliche, but super responsive. We serve clients in a wide geographic footprint, although albeit the majority are in Central, Northern, and Southern California. But you have to be able to be responsive. You have to be able to, as Haley mentioned earlier, things are going to come up. We're going to have our plan, but things are going to come up, and you have to be able to respond. If we had 4 or 5 people as a team, that might be a challenge, but we have a good 16 or 15 or 16 in our proposed team. As Haley mentioned, we have a 30-person team, and I would say also part of my role is to make sure that you never run into that situation. But I can assure you, none of our clients have ever run into a situation where we have not been able to respond to them very timely. And please ask them that.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Chair Ness.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you all for being here. It's a pleasure, and it's been really helpful to listen to all of you. If you are selected, and it will be important for your firm and our designated city auditor in particular, be visible and available to our council, this committee, and the city administration to both for general awareness of the organization and to be responsive to our requests and issues as they come up. Within the scope of your proposal, how will you ensure that that'll be the case, and even more so during the life of the current pandemic?
Well, I'll start us. The pandemic has been interesting, right? And yes, it has. What I can say is that we really, this is a collective comment, both about us and our clients, haven't missed a step in our internal audit programs. Of all the clients we serve, there's only 2 things that we have not been able to do across all of the projects that we've executed, of which there are dozens or worked on in the past several months, is doing cash handling on-site counts, and some of the work we're doing on in IT and actually doing some observation on site. All of those things could be accommodated elsewhere. What we're fortunate is that both our clients and we have been able to conduct 99% of what we do virtually, so that has worked well. But your other point is about being on site, building awareness so that when we are all able to do that, it is important to have that physical presence, which is a part of all of the audits that we do, attending the meetings, having that, not just the name Moss Adams, but the names with the faces. And it's not just going to be Haley, and it's not just going to be Haley and me. You will see our team there, not only for performing the work, but delivering the work. You're not relying on one or two people to represent all the work that we do. We have a very experienced team, and they are the experts in what they do. And so when we're presenting our first risk assessment, Colleen is going to be leading that presentation. And when we're performing our first internal controls audit or internal controls review, that's going to be Haley, Troy, Steve, etc. Haley, anything you want to add?
No, I think that pretty well covered it. I think, you know, a lot of it goes back to open and honest communication. We are going to be a team with you. We are your partner. We will set those expectations right up front. What do you need from me? What do you need from my team? How do you prefer to be communicated to? How often do we need to talk? Is it every few days? Is it certain stakeholders every day? Is it every other week? We need to define those up front. And especially in this virtual environment, one of the things that I kind of thought would sacrifice is our client relations. Because I am a people person. I like to go out there. I get very emotionally invested in my client's success. So being out there in person is very important. However, I have not seen that suffer. I have actually found that I can listen to my clients more. I get more productive one-on-one time having video calls and actual phone calls with them versus the hurry-scurry of traveling, getting in between meetings for them. So I really think it's a matter of us just listening to what your needs are, proactively communicating, staying organized, and really laying all of that out. And I really do think that the risk assessment process that we'll do, the internal controls review process that we do, those have really let us talk to such a wide variety of stakeholders, to listen, to learn the city. What do you need? When do you need it? How can we be most responsive? And, you know, I am very OCD when it comes to project management, and almost to a fault. You guys will definitely see that in me, which can be great for this sort of remote environment and really keeping everyone updated, be available when you need us. So open and honest communication and us diving in, getting to know the city and building relationships and building that trust with your team is going to be done, whether it's remote and they get annoyed by my constant video calls, or if it's in person, which hopefully one day we'll be able to travel out to California again. And I'll look forward to coming out to Palo Alto and building those relationships even further face to face.
And I would just add, just since we've actually been efficient with our time, which is unusual for us because we have a lot to share. When you know that you have a really successful internal audit function in receiving high value in return on your investment, which is substantial in this regard, when city management, committee, council are engaging with us. You never want to be in the situation where here comes internal audit around the corner, right? You know, hide. This is really a help us, help you. The more collaboration we have, trust that we're going to be independent, objective. We're going to say what we think, but that we're going to engage your folks in the process. And so that's where that on-site presence comes in, but that's also where just the work, as Stephen mentioned, at every phase of a project, engaging the stakeholders, really getting the benefit of their insights. That's what makes this all work, because the more that we can extract information from your personnel, the more that we're going to be able to share back with you. And so that collaboration is critical. And again, you'll find our clients, they don't run from us. They actually embrace us in terms of helping them improve their organization. So a minute left. Back to you, Pete.
Thank you. Do we have any follow-up from the committee?
I have one. I am listening carefully to, and it might be you in particular, Haley. You're the lead person for Palo Alto, but do you live a long way from us? Is that what I'm hearing?
I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It is about an hour and 50-minute flight, typically. However, after joining Moss Adams, the majority, I'd say probably 75% of my work is in California. So I am a regular. Prior to the pandemic, I was going to California to be there with my clients at least 3 or 4 times a month. On average, I'm in California visiting my clients. I think being on site, getting to know the team, seeing operations are very important. And so it is part of my job. Although I live, or my home and my family is in Albuquerque, New Mexico, I am where my clients are, and that's how I've always been.
Okay, thanks. Back to you, Pete.
Are there any further questions?
Can I ask a quick one on top of Liz's question here? Which other cities are you the Auditor General for in California?
Sure, so I'll answer that. So Cupertino, Stockton, Redondo Beach, Culver City, Santa Monica. Team, did I leave anyone out? I think those are the current in California.
And is that all Ms. Garcia?
Yes. Well, yes, and the team. I mean, they do, for better or for worse, get the whole team.
Yeah, but yes, I am heavily involved in leading all of those, and in most of those cases designated as the city auditor or the auditor general.
And we can't all be your #1 priority.
Well, you would be the largest, so there you go.
Yes, exactly. I'll get T-shirts made just to solidify it.
Okay. I believe it's a wrap. Thank you so very much for joining us this morning. It is very much appreciated.
Thanks
you,
for having
Paul.
such a thorough
Thank
RFP
you.
and thorough process. So thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So we did talk about a 5-minute break here. We have a few minutes until, let's see, it's 10:28. 10:35 is the next firm, and that is Schoberg Evashenk, team of 3. Do we need to take 5?
We agreed to do that. Okay, so if we can all be back here in 5, that would be helpful, and regroup. In the meantime, let's still our recording.
Okay, I see we are all queued up with the timer and everybody's present. I will go ahead and invite the team in for interview. This is Schoberg Evashenk, the team of three. Good morning.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning and welcome and congratulations. I'm Pete Gonda with the firm of Management Partners, and I am assisting the city through this RFP process. And on screen here is a partner in our firm, Greg Larson, who is a part of this engagement as well. You will see him as the timer on the screen. As we've indicated to you in the interview format, you will have 20 minutes of a structured presentation to introduce your team and work through the 4 questions that have been posed to you. This will be a strictly timed presentation, and it will be followed by a 10-minute question and answer session with the Council Appointed Officers Committee. And with that, I am going to turn the floor over to you.
All right, well, thank you very much. We'll start off with some introductions of our team. And then I do have a PowerPoint presentation that I will also share with you. My name is George Skiles, partner with Schoberg Evashenk Consulting and the proposed city auditor on this engagement. I've been with Schoberg Evashenk Consulting for about 14 years now, joined in 2006. And before that, I was an audit manager with the Los Angeles City Controller who manages the performance audit function for the city of Los Angeles. So I've been a performance auditor, GAGAS performance auditor for about 20 years now. With that, Linda or Kathy?
Sure. Good morning, committee members. My name is Linda McCallum. I'm a partner with Schoberg Evashenk Consulting.
And good morning, I'm Kathy Brady, also partner with Schoberg Evashenk Consulting. I've worked with the firm since we started 20 years ago, and also have done GAGAS audits for about 30 years when I was previously with the California State Auditor's Office prior to Schoberg Evashenk.
Okay, so I'm going to share a PowerPoint with you. Hopefully you all can see that. So what I'd like to do is just go straight into the questions and answer those questions for you. Feel free to interrupt or ask any questions as they come up with you as well. Question 1. Relevant to this particular engagement, what are our key strengths? Well, I think first and foremost, I would say that we've been doing and are certainly capable of doing this type of work, the kind of work that you are looking for. We've been doing it for 20 years. I've worked as an audit manager, like I said, for the city of Los Angeles, and currently serve as the outsourced chief auditor for City of Elk Grove here near Sacramento and Snohomish County, Washington, and are very familiar with managing an audit function, more than just conducting audit engagements themselves, but working with councils and working with other elected officials and executives within local government is something that I've been doing for quite a while. In addition to that, We have direct experience auditing in local government, the very programs and functions that the city of Palo Alto carries out. City clerk, development services, public works, human resources, finance and administration. The key services that are currently provided by the city of Palo Alto, we have extensive experience in each of those areas. Broadly, our firm was founded really on the principles of government auditing standards. We are not a consulting firm that started doing GAGAS audits because there was the opportunity to do so. We are a GAGAS compliant firm conducting GAGAS audits and may also conduct consulting as well for some of our clients. So our experience, my experience from day one in my career, Kathy's as well, and the founding of our firm is predicated on generally accepted government auditing standards and going through the external peer review process regularly. So we absolutely can do this work. I think that's a strength of ours. I think primarily though, what I'm most proud of is really how we work with management. It's the approach that we take when conducting audits, when a program or a function department is selected for audit, the approach that we take.
Yeah, to add what George has described, another one of our firm's key strength is the approach we take on all of our engagements, whether they are audits or consulting projects. While George will expand on this a bit later, briefly, our project approach involves flexibility. We understand the dynamic work environment that challenges executives and staff serving the public, and we take all possible measures to accommodate our clients' schedules while ensuring work progresses smoothly with the minimum of disruption. Communication. We practice a no surprises project approach where we ensure that client representatives are kept abreast of our progress throughout the engagement, including communicating key issues as they arise. We do not wait until the end of a project to communicate our findings. Our approach to open communication allows us really to instill trust with the auditees early on and transform what may have started off as audit stakeholders being skeptical of the process to concluding the engagement with stakeholders that are pleasantly surprised. In addition, on time and on budget is another key strength. We really focus our work to ensure that project budgets focus on efforts that will produce the biggest bang for the buck. We're committed to finishing our projects on time and on budget without requesting change orders, and we have rigorous scheduling and management processes to monitor progress in real time.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah, I will be addressing some of that in response to question 3. I would also say that it is true. I think we really value the end product being one that not only the council sees as valuable, but that management sees as valuable. And particularly when we're starting an audit engagement of a program that sometimes may be an area that may be closed off, if you will, to external entities, capital construction projects. People want to know that they're being audited, that people that understand their business. And sometimes they're skeptical of auditors coming in. But it brings us great satisfaction to see at the end result, they see the work that we've done, and they're not only, it's not only that the process was less painful than they thought it would be, it's that they're happy with the work and they're happy with the effort that went into understanding their business environment. The other key strength that I would state before moving on to the next question is our team. It's the longevity of our team, the continuity that our team brings. But I just wanted to show this slide. We are a small firm, but the majority of the people on this list have been with the firm for more than 14 years and some for 20 years. These are the people that are managing every project that we undertake. These are, of course, as the proposed city auditor, I will oversee every project, But our project managers have been with us for a very long time. They bring continuity to the audit engagement. One department is not going to experience a very different audit than another department. And we bring, obviously you see the alphabet soup at the end of all our names. So a lot of certifications in different areas and different educational backgrounds as well. But this too, we also see as a strength, the continuity that this team brings to our audit engagements. Question number 2. What lessons have you learned about maximizing the internal audit value? And there's a lot here on the screen. I'm going to try to go through it somewhat quick. There's really 3 key lessons that I try to instill in some of our staff. And the first is know your audience. It's actually pretty easy to produce an audit report efficiently and on time, but no one may care about it. It may be something that no one wants to read. The key is to know your audience. What do stakeholders really care about? What does management want to know at the end of an audit? What does the council want to know at the end of the audit? What does the public want to know about their city government? And so really focusing on what the audience wants to read and wants to know in a report is critically important. It's easy for auditors sometimes to audit and to focus on what we know most. And sometimes that's financial, cash controls, and so forth. But really, the key questions that management want to know, want answered, that a council wants to know, that's where the value lies. Third, or the second lesson, is to know your opportunities. There are opportunities that arise in organizations that are ripe for an audit, that present really sound opportunities. For instance, when there's a turnover in management, manager of a department leaves, new manager is coming in. Sometimes that is a great opportunity to conduct an audit. Sometimes we'll conduct an audit alongside a manager of a program, and we will be learning and auditing that program as that manager is learning their division. And it can be a very collaborative approach and a very helpful approach to management. But sometimes, the implementation of a new information system is another one of those opportunities. Take those opportunities and put something on the audit plan at that time. Can be very valuable when individuals are interested in knowing the outcome of the audit as change is happening. And the third is to know your resources. And this, I think, can be a problem in audit shops. I know it was when I was a manager with the City of Los Angeles. Resources are limited. And if an audit plan calls for audits to be presented, 2 or 3 audits or 1 or 2 audits to be presented every quarter to an audit committee, then resources have to be allocated to ensure that those are achieved. And you don't have unlimited time on an audit engagement to get all the answers and to find out all the information and to write a 100-page report that presents everything that we learn. What we try to do is be very focused. And so some of the drivers of this, so that we have implemented to ensure that we are maximizing value, is to identify important audit topics through the risk assessment and planning process. We engage elected officials, we engage management, we engage sometimes resident surveys to identify audit topics that are really important. We develop audit objectives that are very focused, that address important topics within that audit subject. And we develop audit procedures that can be completed within a finite and focused budget, understanding the available resources that we have. We maintain a project management approach that ensures our projects remain on schedule and focused. And we ensure collaboration and flexibility with management. And this, we find, we'll talk about next, helps to keep the project moving forward. Question 3, how will we ensure accountability and reporting responsibility to the council while maintaining collaborative relationship with management? This is very important, and it's actually something that we come across regularly. I actually just this morning had an audit committee with Snohomish County, Washington. In the beginning of the year, we set forth an audit plan that says we're going to present an audit. We're going to present the results at a certain point in time so they can make budget decisions. And we have to achieve that. we work with management to ensure that we do so. Kathy, do you want to touch on Portland Public Schools?
Sure. You know, as you can tell, we have a lot to say about this topic, so I'm going to try to be really succinct in this, but managing that balance is crucial to everything that we do on all of our projects. And we really try to follow some tried and true steps that Linda alluded to earlier. It's about gaining that clear understanding up front about what each party wants to achieve. When we had our Portland Public Schools client, their capital construction program audits, and they have obviously public obligations to the board for objective quality audits, but we had some very specific completion timelines set in statute. So to really help us balance that accountability to the board as well as the strong working relationships we wanted to have with the auditee, it's key for us, open, frequent conversations. We talk about milestones, we talk about completion dates, we talk about problems, that no surprises approach. We are continually discussing those challenges in a candid, forthright, open way that really helps get the trust of the auditee and allows us to move forward and provide the board with some quality audits. In Portland, it's a large capital construction program. There's unforeseen conditions. They had job site safety issues, COVID. And really our flexibility with them, being open with them, allowing our data demands to not interfere with what they had to do to keep their daily operations going, really allowed us to get that trust and develop a great relationship with them, so that once they attended to their need at hand, they were able to help us meet those very stringent timelines. And it's just really that openness and the surprising nature of us dealing with the board and the auditee that I think at the end helps everyone feel that they got a fair shake, that the information is useful, relevant, and can be employed on their projects.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, so we understand that this audit function and many of the audit functions that we are engaged in, we are making commitments to legislative or oversight bodies that are counting on the results to make decisions and to provide oversight over functions. And so, but we also understand that we need to get management's buy-in. We need their support to complete an audit. And balancing these two is very important. And so when we go in and we make commitments to council, first of all, we make sure that we are making commitments that are realistic, that we know we can achieve. But then we go to the department, and we find that being honest and upfront is key in keeping our commitments with them. Makes it more likely that they'll keep their commitments to us. So we try to set expectations upfront. We identify the target completion date, but we also identify interim target dates. When we expect to complete our planning phase, when we expect to complete field work, when we expect to start briefing them on audit findings, get them a draft report, when we expect to have those conversations about results, and when we expect to finalize the report and present it to council. We let management know what we need to get there and what they can expect from us to get there. We also try to understand what both management and council want to achieve through the audit. Management may not have asked for the audit. Sometimes they do, but they may not have asked for it, but they often have an interest in the outcome. And we want to understand what that is and be sensitive to that. And also maintaining open communication and being flexible with their time. We find that being flexible with their time, they're often very willing to go out of their way to be flexible with our time as well. We understand that everyone has a job to do, and find that if we cooperate, everyone can get that job done in a way that is productive and constructive. And finally, the fourth question. This is a challenge. What experiences can we share about transitioning from an in-house to an outsourced audit function? I have experience with audit organizations I know in the city of Los Angeles. They didn't fully outsource an audit function, but they outsourced a large portion of it because they had struggles hiring staff and the resources needed to conduct the audits that they wanted to achieve. And so there was the challenge of finding the right contractors, finding the right contract leaders and managers that meshed well with our team. I think Snohomish County is probably the most direct example because they did this, I believe it was in 2012. They moved away from an in-house audit shop and outsourced it. And they did so. The most significant challenge they faced was finding the right contractor. They did select another firm, I think in 2013, that did not work out, and they went out to bid for another firm, and we were awarded that contract, and I was appointed the county performance auditor, and that contract was renewed last year, I think it was. So that's the most direct experience that we have. And I think the greatest challenge in that is familiarity. Auditors really help an organization when they really understand the organization, when they understand the organizational culture and they understand the perspectives of management and council, when they understand risk tolerance and policy priorities. Auditors can operate really well with their own priorities, irrespective of what the organizations within which they operate, what their priorities are. But they're effective when they understand the risk tolerance, and the risk tolerance may be high in some areas and very low in other areas. So understanding what's important to management and preferences regarding work products. We've had clients, believe it or not, that really like 100-page reports. And we have more clients probably dislike 100-page reports. Every client is different, and learning the style preferences. These are the biggest challenges, because when you have employees on staff, they're around you all the time. And I think when you're hiring a contractor, that's the one thing that changes. You know, this is the one thing that I take great pride in and really focus on, is spending time to learn the client, not just learn the subject of the audit, but to learn the agency that we're serving. Because they all have different preferences, they're all a little bit different, and that is vitally important in our view. So with that, I see that I see the numbers counting down, and I'll conclude. But thank you, and if you have any questions regarding those, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you so much. We are going to proceed into the question and answer portion, and leading us off will be Councilmember Cormack.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gonda, and welcome to Schoberg Evershenk. I hope I pronounced that close to correct.
Yes, you did.
Wonderful. So given the scale of your firm and its other engagements, how will you ensure that the City of Palo Alto receives the full benefit, attention, and delivery of services specified throughout the life of the agreement?
Thank you. A very good question. And I think the simplest answer is that in looking at the scope of this contract, it is in line with some of our other contracts that are of large scope. But we plan our resources well out through the end of 2021. We plan our projects. And we look at the resources available, the staffing resources that we have available, and we look at that horizon going a year and a half out, and identify, you know, what does our plate, if you will, what does that look like? What does our workload look like? And can we keep our commitments to our existing clients before we propose on another engagement? So part of that is the value that we have in our existing clients. We're not always looking out for the next client. We're looking at how can we best serve our current clients with the resources that we have. And so we've looked out over through 2021 and certainly beyond, and we have projects mapped out in terms of, you know, expected workload. We also know that with COVID-19, we've seen some projects that were originally planned that stopped or put on hold, but we map all of that out. We plan well in advance for our workload. And we look at staffing changes. You know, if we see staffing needs and hiring needs, we certainly do that. What we typically don't do is hire brand new project managers and then start leading projects that they're, you know, not familiar with our firm or the work that we've done. We're often hiring, you know, from entry level and bringing people in. But we manage our workload, we manage our clients in a way to ensure that they have our undivided attention on a go-forward basis. So I think that's maybe the simplest way to answer that question. Kathy, Linda, do you have anything to add?
I think it's just, as George was saying, we are continually looking at that schedule and working closely with our clients. Some have very defined deliverable timelines that have to be met. They're in statute or they're just set. And some have more flexibility to allow when there's a huge something that happens on an audit that requires more attention than initially anticipated, that we can shift resources that way. So it's really a continual exercise that we go through out looking at 2021, but it's modified on a weekly basis. And it really allows us to maintain our commitments. And sometimes it's a lot of overtime to make a commitment or bringing in additional resources where we can to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that I raised in the proposal as well, is that we have associates that we will bring on, particularly when there's subject matter expertise required. You know, if we're doing a human resources audit and we need to look at some areas where there's a professional expertise or professional background that will be useful on an engagement. But we do have experienced individuals that we do pull from in those cases where an audit, and this does happen, where an audit may require an influx in resources because of an unforeseen event, or you know, COVID certainly changed the way we carry out our work. So we do have a pool of associates that we've worked with that I've worked with for 14 years since I joined the firm. So there are a number of people that we can bring in to augment our resources.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Chair Niss. Oh, you are muted. We need to unmute.
Much more difficult when you're muted. So thank you all for being here. My question is, if you're selected, it'll be important for your firm and your designated city auditor. Is that you, George?
Yes.
In particular, to be visible and available to the city council, to this committee and the city administration for both general awareness of the organization and to be responsive to requests and issues as they come up. Within the scope of your proposal, how will you ensure that'll be the case, and even more so during the life of this current pandemic?
Yes, that's a good question. I think it hits a little bit on my answer to question number 4, because I think that is crucial to the success of a city auditor anywhere, and certainly outsourcing a city auditor, you know, that it creates that challenge. I can say that I am very responsive. I know we're a little bit a hop, skip, and a jump away from Palo Alto, but we serve clients. Just finished a job in San Mateo County. We serve clients in the Bay Area regularly, and I think we use the city and county of San Francisco as an example in our proposal. But we are in communication, and not right now because of COVID, but outside of COVID, I mean, we have a regular presence in with that client because of a similar situation. And so that's what we would maintain, is with what I would expect regular audits going on throughout the course of a year. I would be present, audit teams would be present. We certainly would have multiple teams probably going on at any given time. But part of it would be actual presence on site. And then part of it is simply going to be me being very responsive to requests that come in as issues come up, questions arise. I think that with the 3 of us, in fact, our whole management team is very responsive, regardless of when those questions come in. I can tell you, I get questions coming in well into the evening and on the weekends. And I think that's part of what we try to do as a small firm, is to be very responsive to our clients and to the needs of individuals, and especially in a program or a contract like this, where we aren't just hired to conduct a specific engagement. We're hired to be part of the Palo Alto team, the city administration, and that functioning and the oversight of city government that entails. And so that requires us to be responsive and us to be present. So hopefully that answers your question there as well.
I would also just like to add that I think because we did work in government, we understand government isn't 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Things happen on the weekends, things happen after. I know you all work well past an 8 to 5 job. So I think it gives us an understanding of what's needed, and that we're going to be available to you. That's our job too. We are here for our clients. We serve public sector clients. And so I think we have a good idea of the need from both working in it and then having our careers at Schoberg-Abelshenk and responding to that. So I think that's really important to us. It's not just 8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
That's right.
Thank you.
And I think just to add one more thing, I think, you know, what I would envision as a program like this starts, it's difficult to do with COVID and working remotely. It's no doubt in an industry in which we value face-to-face interaction and being on the ground to observe business processes. COVID has certainly mixed things up a little bit. But what I would envision within the scope of what we proposed, you know, and I mentioned, I think, a little bit in the proposal, the value of that risk assessment process in kicking off the attempt to familiarize myself with the city. I will be engaging with managers throughout and with staff and being personally available through that project in conducting that risk assessment as a way to at least start the ball rolling in that regard and gaining the familiarity with you all and with management and you know, talking about how the door is always open, we're available. But I do envision that risk assessment process itself would play a key role in how we would at least start that engagement process. So I think that's the final thing that I'll add.
Chair Niss or council members, do you have other questions that you'd like to follow up on?
George, you do live out of California, correct?
Oh, no, I live in Sacramento.
Oh, good. All right. Thank you. I didn't totally understand where you were located.
Oh, yeah. No, our firm is, we do have an employee in Washington, really Portland area. But our firm is 99% in Sacramento. And our work, the bulk of our work is California. I think there's you know, some of it's local here in Sacramento because we do some state work, but a lot in Southern California, Bay Area, and then up the coast. So I would say that's the bulk of our work. And we do some work with the Colorado state auditors. So we're very used to traveling, but really we are very used to traveling to, you know, driving a few hours to see clients. So.
I'm just ascertaining that you know our culture, because we're not like the rest of the states. So thank you for adding that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Additional follow-up? Seeing none, we'd like to thank you so very much for joining us this morning.
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity. We appreciate it and really look forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks. Nice to meet you.
Stay well.
I guess I feel that I have to add, are we alone?
We're still in a public meeting, Liz.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking.
Looks like Pete might have frozen.
I
Mr.
think so.
Gonda, are you there?
He's there. Pete?
Okay, I'm back. My screen froze and Zoom shut down on me right at the tail end of that.
I had that happen earlier, right?
Yeah, this was the second time. Not sure what's going on there. So the last firm is Baker Tilly. They are scheduled for 11:15, and this is a team of 5. We have 5 minutes before their scheduled time. What is the pleasure of the chair?
I think let's take a 4-minute break and we'll start coming back in time to start on time, hopefully.
And Pete, could you send the notice to them, like before we reconvene, and then we'll just let them know council members are coming back?
Will do, Greg.
Thank you.
I have sent a message to the Baker Tilly team, so hopefully they will be jumping on.
Thank you. Pete, if you could also remind him of the 3 dots. I know we put it in the written instructions, but.
I believe we're waiting for 2 more team members. Kyle, Jody, will your other 2 team members be joining us? Oh, you are on mute, Kyle.
Yes, they should be dialing in now.
Wonderful.
I do see Heather, Kyle, and Jody.
Hello, good morning.
There is David.
Kyle, I think maybe we will want to get started. Atit, our other team member, just sent me an error. He unfortunately had a computer crash minutes before this, is trying to connect with his phone and keeps getting kicked in and out. So we will be respectful certainly of all of your time and start with Owen.
Wonderful. Good morning and welcome and congratulations. I'm Pete Gonda. I'm with Management Partners. I'm assisting the city through the RFP process. My colleague and partner in our firm, Greg Larson, is here as well, although he will be utilizing a timer. As we've indicated to you in the interview format, you will have 20 minutes to introduce your team and move through the structured presentation in which 4 questions have been posed to you. This time limit will be strictly enforced, and then we will move right into a 10-minute question and answer session led by the council-appointed officers committee. If you will note that in the right-hand corner of your screen up at the top, there are 3 dots. You can pin the video, use the pin video function to pin the timer to your screens, so you will always be aware and observant of the time that you have. And with that,
those are in the top of my timer window, correct, Pete?
I'm sorry, Greg?
Top right of my timer window?
Yes, the timer window on Greg's screen. Apologies if I wasn't clear. Thank you. And with that, I am going to turn it over to you.
Great. Well, Pete, thank you so much for working with us on this, and thanks for everyone for joining us. My name is Kyle O'Rourke. I'm a senior manager with Baker Tilly, and I am your proposed city auditor. Thanks so much for having us. We really appreciate the opportunity to demonstrate our qualifications today. We're very passionate about public service. We're very passionate about internal audit, and we hope that comes through during our presentation today. I just wanted to start off in terms of my introduction and saying that, you know, of course, I check all of the boxes that are required under the city code, but I think there's a couple of key areas that I want to call out in my introduction. And the first area is really my passion for internal audit and my passion for public service. This is exactly what I love doing. And really, I'm very dedicated to the internal audit profession, as will come out throughout the presentation. The second item I want to call out in my introduction is really what we brand as a value architect will be my role in this engagement. So in addition to fulfilling the obligations of the city auditor role, we want to make sure that we're aligning the best subject matter experts that Baker Tilly has to offer to each of the audit projects that we conduct. And I, over the years, have developed a great internal network, and I'm really in tune with all of the folks on several hundred-member team that serve the public sector and serve on internal audit projects. And I will best be able to deliver Baker Tilly's highest qualified subject matter experts. So with that introduction, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over for the rest of the team to do intros as well.
Good morning. My name is Jody Dobson, and I'm a partner with Baker Tilly. I've spent over 20 years focusing on serving the public sector. I actually specialize on working with municipal utilities, so electric, water, wastewater, telecommunications, gas, and even a few transportation utilities, as well as standalone business-type governments. My background began in financial audits and single audits, but over the years has expanded into strategic planning and rate studies, internal audit, operational reviews, fraud investigations, and contractual compliance work. So a pretty broad range, but all focused on how do we help public sector entities.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Heather Aker, and I have the privilege of leading Baker Tilly's risk and internal audit practice. Prior to assuming this role just 6 months ago, I also served as the leader for our public sector quality assurance function at Baker Tilly. I've spent 24 years in this industry, in public sector. I've dedicated my career to it. I've been very active in the industry as well, serving on various task forces of the GASB, and most recently completed my term as chair of the AICPA's State and Local Government Expert Panel. Thank you for the opportunity.
Good morning. My name is David Eisenlohr. I'm a director with Baker Tilly in our public sector advisory team. As those you've heard before, I've dedicated my entire career to a local government service, starting out in city management and then finding the consulting world. My specific focus is on the delivery of what we call performance optimization solutions for state and local government entities. That includes such things as organizational design and staffing assessments, operational analysis, process improvement, human capital management, those kinds of things, technology assessments. And on this assignment, my role and my team's role will be to support Kyle and his team when your audit plan calls for performance improvements in those and related areas. So we appreciate being here this morning and look forward to the dialogue.
Great, thanks, David. I'm going to go ahead and share with you all on the screen now a PowerPoint presentation we developed that will walk you through our responses to the 4 questions that were posed to us. Please, if at any point you're not able to see what I pulled up, let me know. Beginning on the second slide, we have some team, our backgrounds here. Atit is not on the phone with us, but he's our IT audit specialist. He specializes in cybersecurity and other IT audit work that we'll cover a little bit later on. And of course, we wanted to have a little bit of a takeaway should you want to refer back to our bios. On question 1, really telling you about our firm's strengths, I'm going to begin by turning it over to Jody, who's going to cover some of our key strengths.
Thank you. So we feel that we serve our clients best when we understand your business. And so we value public service, as we've noted, and we really have a respect for public servants. I think a lot of us have backgrounds and family members that work in different areas of public service, and we bring that with us. So really helping you all succeed is why we go to work each day. We've been committed to serving the public sector for over 80 years, and this was actually one of our firm's very first industry specializations. And this has just grown over the years. So now we have over 1,000 clients and over 420 professionals specializing in serving governments. And for your project, we pose to combine that with our over 300 professionals that specialize in risk and internal audit, which will bring you the right expertise for each project, yet view it through the lens of a municipal government. We feel you really deserve an internal audit function that is designed specifically for you. So we listen to you to identify the risks, develop focus areas, and address your concerns. Collaboration at all levels, from the city council to senior management to process owners, is key to our process, and it gets to the heart of the issues the first time around and provides results that are both actionable and right-sized for your organization. So along with that, our dedication to the public sector is demonstrated through our involvement in the industry. And a little bit of this has been mentioned. We have several of the organizations that we've been involved in here, but Kyle, your proposed city auditor, is the vice president of the Chicago chapter of the Institute of Internal Auditors, the chair of the chapter's Government Advisory Committee, and recently was named the William C. Anderson Member of the Year. And I currently serve on the Board of Trustees for the Wisconsin section of American Water Works Association, as well as I'm a co-author with another of our partners for the American Public Power Association Advanced Utility Accounting Manual. And Heather mentioned her involvement both with GASB and the AICPA State and Local Government Expert Panel. So just some of the things that we do outside of our project work. With that, I'm going to turn it over to, I think, David to talk a little bit more about some of our specific internal audit services.
David, I can actually fill in for Atit here on the IT audit work. But on the next slide here, we want to communicate the breadth of internal audit services that Baker Tilly is able to offer. As you can see, we call out each area that we have in the proposal. We really want to call out first our IT audit areas. We go well beyond the traditional areas of internal audit focus, accounting and finance. And of course, there's some hot topics in IT audit and cybersecurity these days. Some things that we know about Palo Alto, we know you're on SAP, and we have a long history of conducting audits that involve SAP functionality. We of course know that PCI compliance might be of a concern to the city. Parks and recreation, billing, collections with the utility. There's a lot of credit card activity. And also cybersecurity is always a hot topic with cloud computing and the other advancements that are taking place in the technology space these days. So we have extensive experience in the IT audit space and want to communicate that to you all. And now I'm going to turn it over to David to talk a little bit about our organ op assessment qualifications.
Thanks, Kyle. And I've outlined already a good bit of what we do in that realm of organizational improvement, performance optimization, as we call it. And I noticed in reviewing your materials that your internal audit function has historically had a real focus on performance audit, not just typical controls and risk assessments, but very expansive in terms of multiple ways of helping the organization improve. So I've discussed about already business process improvement, organizational design, staffing analysis. We also have within the broader reach of the Baker Tilly organization, people that specialize in fraud and forensic accounting. So that involves, of course, either suspected or known incidents of corruption, fraud, bribery, that we have either consulting services to help you prevent that or investigative services to help you dig into those and understand them. We've got a strong construction audit practice. We know you are in the midst of a very, very large capital project in your new public safety building, and the construction audit team has a set of solutions in pre-construction, during construction, and post-construction audit, reviews, compliance testing, and so forth. Very, very strong practice in helping manage costs and ensure that you get what you're paying for in your capital projects. And then finally, within our municipal advisory practice, we have a team that specializes in financial management, whether that be rate studies, cost allocation, and so forth, that we can help you with on an operational level. Thanks very much, Kyle.
I want to assure the group that California is a critical geography for Baker Tilly, and it's only going to grow in importance in upcoming months and years. As you may have noticed on page 11 of our proposal, we gave a sampling of a variety of our clients. Jody mentioned earlier, we have 1,000 units of governments that we serve today as clients. A number of them in California are listed on page 11 of the proposal. However, I also want to tell you that our commitment to California is going to be, further evident in upcoming months. We are nearing the completion of a significant California-based advisory tax and assurance firm combination, which is going to allow us to further strengthen that base significantly in California, ultimately offering, more resources, more solution, more talent to our clients in the state.
And finally, I'll just quickly comment on Baker Tilly's commitment to diversity. We have a number of programs which we've highlighted in our proposal. We are very committed to diversity of all sorts, and we have a number of initiatives to address that at an accounting firm like ours. I'll go ahead and jump into question 2, which really drives at how does internal audit maximize value, and what will Baker Tilly do to deliver that value. So we have a number of strategies we deploy to make sure we're delivering value-add internal audit services. The first of which is investing time to streamline the planning process. In an audit planning process, we really want to agree on objectives. We want to hone in on the most important factors that are driving risks and will add value to the organization. So in any project we get involved in, we spend a lot of time up front making sure that ourselves, management, are really focused in on the key areas. In executing an effective risk assessment process, we'll determine internal audit activities through the risk assessment process, and we'll make sure that we encompass the entire city during that assessment and hone in on areas of importance. We'll comment on this a little bit later, but we'll leverage data analytics. We have a variety of tools to do so, not only audit tools and audit software, but also tools like Tableau, where we can visualize data and help our audit process. Assembling purpose-built teams, we always want to make sure we're putting the best subject matter experts in front of all of our audit work, and we will definitely be looking to do that with all of our work with the city. And you might hear us say this a couple times, but we're not your traditional check-the-box auditors. We really try to drive value. We're not simply looking at compliance requirements and are we following policies. We do, of course, do that, but we want to make sure that we're going beyond that and making recommendations that will truly improve the city's operations. I'm just going to call out a couple of areas here. I think the historical approach versus our approach, there's a couple key components to that. I'm going to jump all the way to the bottom. I mentioned we're not gotcha auditors. Our intent isn't to call people out in public meetings and say, if you did something wrong, but rather we want to be a helpful ally. We want to be an ally to management. We want to be an ally to the board or council, and we really want to drive value. So that's what we'll be looking to do in our process. And I guess another thing that I'll call out is, we're not just focused on the tactical, but we're looking at strategy and strategic objectives. We always try to tie our work and in particular our recommendations back to organizational strategy, departmental strategy, and make sure that we're enabling the folks that oversee those areas to better do their jobs and improve operations in those areas. I'm going to jump to some innovative tools. These are highlighted in great detail in the proposal. Two that we haven't yet commented on, intelligent automation. So if there's opportunities within the city to streamline or automate audit processes through robotics and process automation, we have team members who have experience doing that. We talked a little bit about analytics, and agile auditing is really a concept that makes us more nimble in our IT audit process and enables us to change our audit objectives throughout to more focus on areas of importance. So I mentioned that we invest a lot of time up front on an audit, making sure that we are focused in the right areas. Well, if at any point we determine that we need to change course, agile auditing principles enable us to do that so we don't get too focused on, check the box type of audits. I'm going to turn it over to Heather to address some areas under question 3.
Yeah, sounds great. Question 3, we really appreciate the question. And as we talked about it as a group, we decided that really, Kyle, if you can go to the next slide, this answer is inherent in the work that we do each day. How do we balance the importance of independence and objectivity, and knowing that we ultimately report to the City Council with the need for a collaborative working relationship with all the different types of management within the organization. And so I just want to highlight for you again, this is part of what we do each day, both our member firm responsibilities through the AICPA as a CPA firm, as well as the IAA standards we follow in conducting our work. Inherent in this, and as we put along the bottom of the slide, is a constant state of collaboration and communication to ultimately get to the most accurate and quality deliverables we can, that we have buy-in from all the parties involved. If you can go to the next slide, I will briefly share an example for you of someone very close to you. Stanford University is a current client of our risk advisory practice. We performed over the last few years a project we called Management Internal Controls SOX Lite initiative. This was an important project where we worked for the CAE and ultimately the audit committee in creating an entire robust process of looking at and enhancing the internal controls throughout the business and research functions of the organization. Ultimately, we needed to work across many different areas of management and have them buy into what we were designing to be implemented, because at the conclusion, this was turned over to management to then execute on a go-forward basis. And so it's one of the success stories that we think highlights how we both worked independently for the audit committee, as well as very collaboratively with management.
Great, and moving on to question 4. So question 4 really digs into our ability and history of helping organizations transition from an in-house to an outsourced internal audit function. I think the critical point, even before we dive into the content on the slide, is to say that we've helped dozens of clients make this transition in the past, both in the public sector as well as in the private sector. So we have a great history of doing that. And this slide actually depicts our methodology for doing that. We have a methodology, we've proposed it in other cases. And these are sort of the steps that we take in making that transition or helping the client make that transition. So the first step is initial planning. We'll meet with members of management, we'll meet with folks on the council, we'll identify key process owners, confirm key risks that we've identified in preliminary analysis, and we'll agree on what really drives the city's need for internal audit. What do you believe a successful program should consist of? And second, we'll conduct a transition review. We'll review recent internal audit documentation. We'll look at prior reports. And ultimately, from those two phases, we'll develop a transition plan. From there, we'll co-develop expectations and then move into planning and executing auditors. Some keys here, as the city auditor, I will be in constant communication with management. I will be available, whether it's remotely or in person. We'll invest time understanding the city and its objectives. We'll understand operations and meet with personnel. We often do a road show at the beginning of these types of projects to get to know folks and what their key drivers for success look like. And we'll learn about the city's systems and control environment. So what applications are being used and sort of high-level overview of the control environment. A couple of examples of where we've done this in the past and some kind of key takeaways from 3 of the examples. Again, we've done this in a dozen or so instances previously. With the city of Bryan, Texas, we included this, it's roughly the same size, but they moved to this model, and what we were able to do is bring in subject matter experts that delivered efficient and value-add internal audit activities. Their prior experience had very much been, the traditional internal auditor, accounting and finance focused, doing similar audits year after year, not adding much value. Well, we were able to help turn that around. And with Minnesota State University, we really focused on the relationship building. Upfront on these sorts of projects, we want to work with the folks on the line here today. You are of critical importance to the success of internal audit, as well as other functional area owners and process owners. So it's developing relationships early on, forming those collaborative and communicative relationships, and really that's a great driver for success for internal audit. I know time is up.
Yep. Yeah, we do need to move on. We appreciate you keeping on time. And I would like to turn it over to the council committee for the question and answer session. If there is time for follow-up, we can certainly pursue that. Councilmember Cormack.
Thank you, Mr. Gonda, and welcome to the Baker Tilly team. We appreciate having you here today and sharing this information. My question is, given the scale of your firm and its other engagements, how will you ensure that the City of Palo Alto receives the full benefit, attention, and delivery of services specified throughout the life of the agreement?
That's an absolutely great question. I might ask Heather to help me respond. But the first couple things I would say is this actually comes as a great timing for me personally. I'm proposed as your city auditor, and of course would be dedicating a significant amount of time. And over the next couple of months, I will be wrapping up some significant engagements that will free up my time personally. So, that's a great benefit and something that, I'll be able to slide right in, I guess, so to speak. Additionally, the benefit with internal audit is that a lot of what we do is very planned out. We'll conduct a risk assessment, develop a year-long internal audit plan, and we have very robust scheduling tools so that I can block off people's time to execute audit work well in advance of an audit engagement taking place. So for instance, if we determine that, there's 10 audit engagements, 12, I think is what we actually are proposing here, preliminarily proposing, of course. I'd be able to block off the engagement manager's time as well as the staff time well in advance, and we'd be sure that we had, we're ready to go to report findings at the agreed upon schedules.
I'll only add to that, Kyle, just generally, we are a large firm. We're 4,000 people deep, about to add 600 more people to our organization in a few months. Of the size and scale specific to our internal audit and our public sector practices that Jody highlighted, that gives us a lot of depth to pull from in assigning the right subject matter experts to the right audits that are being conducted. And just quite frankly, being integrally connected with this project myself and having responsibility for leading our risk and internal audit practice, I have a lot of ability to make the appropriate staffing assignments or reassignments to make sure you're getting the attention you deserve.
Thank you so much.
And I would say just similarly, the folks that we have represented here, Atit, Jody, and David all come from leadership positions within the firm, and similarly will enable prioritization of work for the city as we proceed working together.
Thank you. Chair Niss.
Thank you, Pete, and nice to see all of you. If you are selected, it'll be important for your firm and your designated city auditor, Kyle in particular, to be visible and available to the council, this committee, and the city administration, to both for general awareness of the organization and to be responsive to requests and issues as they come up. Within the scope of your proposal, how do you ensure that to be the case, especially more so since we are continuing to face the pandemic?
That's a great question. I think there's several different responses to that. I think the first of which is traditionally in relationships like this, we like to block off my time over a long duration for particular meetings that we know are scheduled in advance. So for instance, if these meetings fall every Tuesday, well, I will block off this time every Tuesday to make sure that I'm available for pre-scheduled meetings. So that's easy. In terms of being responsive to other requests, I think you would be a priority. More than, I think it's roughly 60 to 70% of my time would be fully dedicated to Palo Alto. So, I would be available significantly and would prioritize meetings that you all are requesting, at all times. I think in terms of other folks' time that are part of the project, I think they would take similar actions to prioritize the city. It'd be, again, blocking off time, reserving it, and taking actions to make sure that you are a priority. And then I think the last thing I would say, and again, Heather, if you want to chime in on this, but travel and an on-site presence is critical here. We're all getting used to developing relationships in a remote environment. It's definitely a little bit more challenging, but we'll continue to do that for the time being. But of course, this project is 2, potentially 3 years long, and we will begin traveling. And I'm committed to being on site at least twice a month in order to develop those relationships and have an on-site presence.
Yeah, nothing to add, Kyle. I think that was very well said. The only thing I will perhaps mention about the pandemic is that we're really following the lead and guidance that our clients are requesting. If that means your policies include, access or not, or limited access to your buildings, if your preferred communication tools are Zoom, or Teams, some of our clients use, we're going to follow your lead of how you want this interaction to go during this temporary time. We're looking at this from the investment in a long-term relationship and an absolute commitment to personalized attention on site when the time is appropriate at your direction for that to occur.
Thank you so much for those responses. I would like to ask the committee if there's any follow-up questions.
Could I do that, please, Pete? Looking at you, Kyle, you're the designee, and you indicated flying in. So I presume you're coming from a distance?
That's correct. I live in Chicago, Illinois.
Okay. And how do you feel about the culture in California? Is that one that you know well or one that you'll be learning about and assimilating?
I believe I know it fairly well. And in fact, we had a phone call yesterday with some of our counterparts in California, and the way they described Palo Alto is very much how I would describe myself. I think it sounds like folks from Palo Alto are very business-minded, sort of shrewd in their business practices, but also progressive. I noticed in reviewing some of, the kind of key, I forget what they were called on the website, but sort of kind of key initiatives that are ongoing deal with, the Black Lives Matter movement, environmental stewardship. And those are certainly things that I would say align to me personally and also to, our firm and our values that we express as a firm. So I think, those two aspects I think align very well to my personality, and I don't foresee any issues fitting in and developing relationships with similar minded folks.
Do any of your team live in California?
So, go ahead, Heather.
Sure, I'll take that one, Kyle, if it would be okay with you. Our pending transaction, we will be adding 600 people in the state of California to our team, including some that are subject matter experts in risk and internal audit. So they will become integral parts when the expertise is appropriate, to be added to this project. And we will otherwise be, leveraging the right fit. We often say, let's add the right expertise of service and industry specialization to our projects. And we've successfully worked in a national basis in this practice through that lens. Would encourage you, if you have questions in this regard, to reach out to some of the references we listed in the proposal where Kyle has served in the lead role to hear about his responsiveness, and ability to be there whenever needed, on site in person.
Thank you.
And I would just also say, I'm used to traveling. I travel a lot. I'm very adept at it. I'm great at working on airplanes, and I can pack in 5 minutes, all the things that go along with traveling quite a bit. And you'll notice some of the clients that are listed under my experience are not local. So I spend time in Detroit, for example. That's one of the projects that's sort of winding down. I've spent time in Southern California, really coast to coast, New York City. So, something that we're used to, something that we're very capable of doing. And, again, we would have pre-planned times to travel out. And if there's a need to travel out on short notice, I'd be more than willing to do so.
Thank you.
We are just about out of time. Is there any additional follow-up from the committee? Okay, seeing none, we would really like to thank you for your presence and participation today.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Okay. There's Greg. Nice picture of you, by the way. But it's great to have you back. So this concludes the interview segment of the 4 firms. What is needed now is for you to provide to me your rankings, which I will then turn into an averaged ranking, and that will be brought back after the recess. And during that or when we come back from recess, you'll see the average rankings alongside of the average rankings from the evaluation of the written proposals. And then Greg will lead us through a discussion on reconciling those and selecting finalists to advance for the city auditor interviews in closed session.
May I ask a question about the process? Earlier, we took public comment on things not on the agenda. Are we also taking public comment on this item? And if so, should we have that before we complete our evaluations and share that with you?
I will.
Is it directed to the chair?
I'm not sure who's.
I can handle, or the clerk can handle.
You probably should have oral communications on this item if any of the 3 attendees want to speak. One is one of our staff members, one is from the newspaper, and I'm not quite sure who Andrew is, but you should ask them if they want to speak on this item.
Good, a good reminder. Okay, in that case then, as chair, let me turn to you, City Clerk, and call the people who are here and have them speak for 2 minutes.
Hello, this is Jessica Brettel, the Assistant City Clerk. If you would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand in the Zoom app or dial *9 on your phone. I will give you a few seconds. Chair Niss, I do not see that anybody wishes to speak.
Okay, thank you. So we have gone to the public and no public person wishes to speak to us, which brings us back to this meeting. And was that your process question, Councilmember Cormack?
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Okay. And so, Pete, why don't you go through the rest of the timing for today to bring us totally in line with process?
So excuse me, in terms of timing, I will need some time to compile the rankings from each of the individual committee members. So it would be appropriate to have a recess period in order to do that. And once we come back from the recess, I will show those averaged rankings together from the written evaluation and today's interview process, and you will have the opportunity to discuss those rankings and ultimately come to consensus on which finalists to advance to interviews in closed session. Greg, is there something you wanted to add?
I was just going to suggest to the chair what might work is if each committee member can finish their personal evaluations and submit those to Pete in the next 2 to 4 minutes, we could then reconvene as a committee at 12:05.
Liz, you're muted. Liz, we can't hear you.
I'm back. There was noise in my background. So I am now here, and you're indicating that in 10 minutes we should reconvene, correct? Pete, am I still muted?
No, you are not muted. 10 minutes provided that I receive your rankings within the next couple of minutes.
Okay, great.
Before your break.
And you know I'm going to text mine to you, Pete.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Quick question. Are we ranking, I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but are we ranking them overall or just on their interviews today?
So the process, of course, is to apply the established criteria in totality, using both the written proposals, the ranking of the written evaluations, and of course the interviews. Your ranking today really should focus a little bit more on the interviews. The evaluation of the written proposals was conducted without a human element, of course, so that it's for context and discussion. But in terms of the way you are ranking now, you've gone through a progressive process, and at the end of the day have ordered each firm at the end of each of the interviews.
Okay, thanks.
So that final ordering of the firms is what you'll submit to Pete. And then when we come back, we'll have both the evaluation team's evaluation of the written proposals averaged and your collective evaluation of the interviews, which includes everything up to that point for the committee to then choose which 1, 2, 3, or 4 firm city auditor candidates go to the council for a closed session interview.
Okay, so now we're going to take a break. We'll each take 2 to 3 minutes, as time is elapsing, to complete our evaluation, and then we'll share that with Mr. Gonda.
Can I recommend that we reconvene at 12:15? Or wait, it's just about 12 now.
Given the discussion, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
12:15?
12:15.
Okay. We'll
Thank
all be
you.
back in about 15 minutes plus.
Thank you all. I'm not able to join you. I've enjoyed the process. Good luck.
Thanks, Larry.
Are we mostly back?
The committee is here.
I see Greg.
I think Pete must still be consolidating. Let me text him. Pete's the one who didn't get a break, so.
That was hard. They were all different.
Who's talking?
That was Eric.
Oh. Boy, weren't they different though?
They're all different.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to talk about them. I'm waiting.
So maybe I'll tee up while we're waiting. Have you reconfirmed, I assume? And Beth, I'm assuming we're back in public meeting?
We are back in public meeting at this point, yes.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Jessica.
You're very welcome. I thought that this went well. We were trying to figure out the best way to facilitate this process.
Zoom does not allow a timing function, so we had to improvise on that, but it worked. So it'll be a recommendation to Zoom to incorporate it.
Yes.
So, with all their other improvements. But maybe while we're waiting for Pete, I'll just tee up for the committee and others who are observing what he will be bringing back and sharing on the screen is a spreadsheet that has each of the 4 finalist firms listed as rows on the left. And then the 2 substantive columns are the average ranking for each firm based on their written proposals as scored by the evaluation team, and then the average ranking based on the process to date as scored by each member of the CAO committee. And you will have those 2 columns of rankings, recognizing that the evaluation team was simply on written, but to inform your discussion with the end goal to be identifying 1, 2, 3, or even 4 firms that you choose to send to the council for interviews of only the city auditor candidates, not the full firm. It will just be one person in the room, quote unquote, with the council for each interview. So Pete, I was just laying out the process while you came on, Chair.
Yeah. Hi, Pete. Have we some time limit that we are working within? I have what's to you a 1 o'clock appointment. So are we needing more time than that? Do I need to alter that one?
It all depends on what Pete's going to share with us next. Will help inform whether we're going to need more time.
I apologize. I lost my internet connection.
It's happening.
It was gone. Okay, I'm going to share up my screen. Can everybody see that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So as Greg was mentioning, column E here shows the average ranking of the written proposals by the evaluation team. Very interesting because you'll note that there was a tie between Eid Bailey, and Schoberg Evashank. Now this represents an average of the rankings of each of the evaluation team members. Column F shows the average ranking of this process just conducted this morning. And you'll see that Moss Adams is in first position, followed by Baker Tilly, Eid Bailey, and Schoberg Evashank.
So to answer your question,
Is the chair
Liz,
ready for motions?
Oh, that was fun. Okay, we have been on for a while. Go ahead, Pete.
I think it's now to the committee for any questions you have on the evaluation process, or to move towards a recommendation of which firms and how many go to council for city auditor candidate interviews. In terms of your original question, Liz, this appears to be relatively clean results, which may make the discussion easier and shorter, but it's subject to the council committee's direction and discussion.
So, Greg, I know one discussion we had was you said 2 might be desirable, but you could go with 3. Are you sticking with that?
I will just tell you, having worked on lots of personnel and purchasing processes, I view each step of the process as a winnowing process. So if I were to make an abstract recommendation, it would not be to send 4 forward to council. And also having worked with many city councils, I suspect that a council feeling they're only being given one choice by staff or by a committee may not be acceptable to your council colleagues. That's a judgment you will have to make. So all of that leads me, as well as these scores, where we kind of had a fairly clear delineation through both evaluation processes between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, that might be the natural split, and to send 2 forward to the council. But it's certainly subject to your discussion and preferences.
So I think our first discussion should it be the 3 top, or should it be the 2 top? I could go with 3, and I could be persuaded to 2. So that's sort of where I am at this point. Allison, you were anxious to make a motion?
I would, when you're ready. I'm not meaning to cut the conversation short, but I don't know that we're supposed to have, I don't know how substantive a conversation it would be appropriate for us to have now. If so, we can certainly do that. My feeling would be to send forward Baker Tilly and Moss Adams, those 2 city auditors, for our council colleagues to consider tomorrow. That would be my recommendation.
Could I consider that a motion?
You may.
Second.
Okay. I think, and I would be the third on that. What I think is that from what we heard today, these are very different, such different organizations that it's sort of breathtaking. And I'd like the full council to have a chance to hear all 3 of them, even though I realize it's yet more work. So that would be my discussion on it as to why I would support the 3. So having jumped in as the chair, my apologies. But Allison and Eric, do you want to sort of buff that up a little?
Can I clarify, Chair Nist, you said support the 3 or support the 2?
The 3.
So, okay. I'll just return to then speak to why I think these 2 are the appropriate ones.
You want 2 or 3?
I want 2.
The top 2?
The top 2. And I believe that's what Councilmember Phil says seconded.
Yes.
Yes. I just want to say a few words about the process, and then a few words about the 2 Baker Tilly and Moss Adams, written in this order, which is alphabetical, by the way. This process has been lengthy and detailed, and I'm sure people who are following along have found it perhaps tedious at times. I have found it comprehensive and orderly, and at each stage of the process, it has been, while it has been time consuming, I've felt that it's been the appropriate amount of, as you said, Mr. Larson, winnowing. And while I think many of these firms would be capable of doing this work, oh good, that's not my dog barking.
Sorry, that's my dog.
No worries. Suddenly I was like, wait, where's my dog? I think these two have demonstrated an understanding of our needs at a different level than the two who are ranked 3 and 3 and 3 and 3 and 4. And for me, that's what differentiates the top two, is their specific understanding of our needs and their ability to address that. I'll let my second go.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually didn't like the Moss Adams interview very much. Hang on one second.
The value of the quick photo.
My doggy.
Sorry about that. I actually didn't like the Moss Adams interview very much. Otherwise, they would have scored higher at my overall. In my mind, the difference between 2 and 3 is with 2, we get to spend a little more time with the individual candidates. Sorry. With 2, we get to spend a little more time with the individual candidates, and with 3, we get one more firm and so forth. I have to say that I actually liked them all, right? So it wouldn't be a disaster if we sent even 4, in my opinion, right? Because I actually like them all, right? But I saw a line, notwithstanding the fact that I didn't care that much for the actual interview with Moss Adams. I saw a distinct line between the top 2 and the next 2, and so I'd rather spend time with the 2 candidates.
So let me speak briefly to it. I'm struggling a bit with Baker Tilly, which is why I mean, we've already got 2 votes for just 2, so I'm still going to give you my perception of the rest of the
yes, please. I can change my mind.
of the discussion. Baker Tilly is that Christmas package that's so beautifully wrapped and presented in such a way that you just cannot wait to open it. And Kyle is very persuasive, and he's the guy that I knew in the fraternities that everyone wanted to date. He's very personable, very outgoing, and I predict he's not going to last too long in Palo Alto. Chicago that's a long way to be going back and forth, and I'm concerned about that, even though I felt that their analytics was terrific. You know, there are lots of things that are persuasive, especially that Stanford happened to be their demo. Moss Adams, I was very impressed by their interview. I thought Haley did a good job, a little unnerved that she's in Albuquerque, but that's what is. And she sounded like she would really handle this well. It's A.D. Bailey, right? Not I.D., it's A.D. And I thought that his knowledge of jurisdictions that he has worked with and his comfort level with the Bay Area was very reassuring to me. I think we're a complicated area, and I don't think that we are as easily assimilated as some of the others seem to believe. So that's why I would have gone with all 3, because they're so different. And I thought it'd be very interesting to see what our other colleagues see of what I see as the 3 most different that are there, but also all would be adequate. I wasn't particularly enthused about George from the show. Is it Schoberg close
Yeah.
enough. So that's why I wouldn't have included the 4. But if anyone's interested in 3, I could go with 3.
Can someone remind me where Mr. Sundstrom is located? I mean, I know he had the experience with CSU.
Sacramento.
He's also in Sacramento?
I believe that's correct.
The firm is based in Sacramento. Schoberg, Evanchek, and Mr. Sundquist.
So it's interesting. I'm just listening intently to Councilmember Niss talking about Baker Tilly, because I like Kyle quite a bit, right? I also like Haley quite a bit, right? I thought they were, right. We didn't hear that much from David, although what we did hear I liked. For me, the big negative was at some point they said, well, we actually haven't done an outsourcing of an internal audit function before, so you'd be the pioneer here, right?
I heard
that one knocked me for a bit of a loop, right? But there was some stuff that I really liked about it. EIDE Bailey as well, but it's interesting listening to you talk about. I mean, Baker Tilly was the most polished of them, right? I mean, they're like IBM, right? I mean, real corporate professionals.
Yeah.
So, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if we are going to go into details, then I'll come back and do a round on these 3, if that's all right with the chair.
Please.
Okay. All right. So with Moss Adams, I think the strongest part for me was that they have similar experience with neighboring cities. They know how to do this already. So that was the number 1 reason I ranked them highly.
Me too.
And I have to say I share Ms. Garcia's approach to project management, that she's very OCD. I found that incredibly reassuring as a potential client. With respect to Baker Tilly, I don't think we can discount their depth. So for example, they're the only ones who talked about utilities. It's a huge business we own and operate. Rate setting, like this level of detail does require expertise. And clearly, I apologize, I only wrote down her first name. Jody, has a specialty in utilities. They understand that we're going to be doing construction. So their depth, I think, gets at the fact that while Moss Adams works with other cities, not all of them have the same breadth of activities that our city has. So that, I think, gets to Chair Niss, they're so different. They are so different. And I think it's helpful for the council to think about, do we want someone who knows how to do this right now for people nearby, or do we want someone who will help us grow, change, in the future? What will the future look like? And then with respect to Eide Bailly, things that I liked is they were very focused on the risk. I agree that the concern I had is I share with Councilmember Filseth that we would be sort of their first. So that has some advantages, frankly. It's not just scary. It means that they would want to make it work. They wanted to start with a risk assessment, which, again, I have said from the beginning is I'll be very interested in, although it'd be interesting if anybody's risk assessment last year said global pandemic and upend anything. I'm starting to think I don't know how valuable these risk assessments will be. And then the other thing that I thought was very insightful on the part of the proposed deputy auditor from Eide Bailly was that there would be that she understood there are multiple layers of clients within clients, and she talked about the difference between the council and this committee and the city manager and what we call the ELT. So I'm absolutely not opposed. This is a big decision we're making.
Huge.
This is a really big decision, and while usually I'm on the side of efficiency, and I think Councilmember Filseth was right there with me, I know that Chair Niss is the only one who's actually gone through this process before. And so if you think it's worthwhile including Eide Bailly in the interviews tomorrow, then I'd be happy to amend my motion.
I would like to, as I said, because there's such a high contrast, and I think that we've been so burned with our auditor experience that kind of left a lasting sizzle. And if we can go with the three of them, I think that'll give the contrast that lets us somewhat easily make a decision about who will be number one. I would agree. Baker is, you know, it's always tempting to choose the one that looks the most professional. I noticed every one of them had the same background up. And I thought, oh my, maybe they all wear the same suits too. It does have a little of that IBM-ish to it. So if by consensus we could do the top three, would that work?
I can live with that.
And the only comment I would add is for the interview cycle, again, it's just one person, not a team.
Right.
When we get to that portion of the discussion, I'll have some recommendations for you on how to structure those interviews. But it would be basically 30-minute interviews for each of 3 firms or 45-minute interviews for 2 firms. So that's, or the council chooses to meet longer if they choose.
I think, don't we have 3 hours blocked out?
Correct. But I'm leaving an hour for council deliberations, 45 minutes to an hour for
What
council
time did we agree on?
deliberations.
Where did we finally end up tomorrow? At what time?
1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time
Okay, 4 o'clock my time.
is what we were written this morning. The original calendar appointment that came out from the clerk's office said 3 o'clock, but there was an email to the council this morning
But
saying
it
1
really,
p.m.
it's really 1 o'clock, right?
I'd look to the clerk to verify that.
It is 1 o'clock and it has been posted.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So it's from 1 to 4 now tomorrow? Okay.
Or 4 to 7.
Or adjust. Okay, so we have 3 hours tomorrow. I guess the length of the interview, how we structure it depends on how much time we need. So I guess now I'd be interested in hearing if through the chair, if Mr. Larson and Mr. Gonda have suggestions about how much information is provided in advance to council members, and whether there's a presentation or whether there's questions, whether the committee presents some version of, you know, here's what we saw.
All of those are on the table for committee direction, and that's why we wanted to have the discussion as a starting point for that committee discussion. We kind of have some minimums we'd recommend, which is one, that the resume of the proposed city auditor candidate, which was provided in the proposals as a separate page, would be submitted to each member of council as part of the confidential staff report, closed session staff report today, as is typical for personnel processes. Second, that we, certainly with 2, but even with 3 firms, I do believe we could do up to 2 reference checks with existing clients on each of those firms and provide that not in the staff report, but as an oral summary at the start of tomorrow's council meeting. We would need this afternoon and tomorrow morning to do those contacts. Third, as for the full proposals, I'm hesitant, given the purchasing process that's underway, that is kind of parallel with the council closed session process, as we've discussed before, to overload the council with the full proposals of 3 firms numbering 60 to 100 pages on less than 24 hours review time, I think could be overwhelming. So then, Council Member Cormack, I think your comments might be appropriate that at the beginning, the council members get the resumes and the committee, either through the chair, the ad hoc committee, or the full committee provides how we got to where we are. I would cover that in the staff report, kind of in the process, but more from the council member perspective. You could share that in lieu of the full proposals going to the council on half day's time to review. The actual structure of the interviews, whether it's 30 minutes or 45 minutes, I was thinking there'd likely be 3 to 4 structured questions and then open-ended council discussion. As often happens with council appointee determinations, as you've probably seen before, certainly Chair Niss, you often have one interview, that's the formal interview, and then you have the fit discussion. How are we going to work together if this proceeds? I think given the timeline we're on, that needs to be collapsed into one discussion, and that's best done with 3 to 4 structured questions and then 2 to 4 open-ended questions.
Hearing all this, Greg, are we just pushing this to the wall?
Not at all. I think it's doable. I think
Okay.
you did incredibly well with teams of 3 to 5 people in a tight 30-minute timeline, and I think you got substantive information from almost every response. Doing it one-on-one is a lot easier. Now you will be 5 to 7 on one, but it's really one question going to the respondent and that person communicating. So I think you will get the assessment of the council's comfort with appointing one of these 2 or 3 candidates as your city auditor as called for in the city charter. So I think you can do that in 30 minutes.
May I, Chair Niss?
Yes, please.
Just on behalf of my colleagues, if I would want to see the proposals.
Yeah.
I am not comfortable asking them to make this decision based on one piece of paper. And the second thing is, so the interviews we just conducted or public record, are those videos already posted, and how quickly will they be available to colleagues who might want to review them so that we're not recovering any ground?
I would defer to the clerk on that.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question one more time?
Yes, Ms. Nettle. I'm asking how quickly the video of this meeting we are currently having will be posted and available so that any council member who will be making a decision tomorrow would have the opportunity to go back and watch the interviews of the 2 or 3 firms that we sent forward.
So for CAO committee meetings, we don't typically post the video. We have the audio and the transcripts that are available. But
okay, well, how quickly can we get that?
We can get creative and see if we can do some sort of Dropbox delivery or something with a video to them. It should be pretty quick. I'm local recording on my computer right now, so we can figure out at least to get the audio, if not both audio and video, to council members later today.
Thank you. I do just feel that would be, we want everyone to have full information, and I'm concerned if we're, only have 30 minutes with each of these people, and there are 6 or however many of us that will be available, 7, however many, that I just want to be sure our colleagues have all the information they need to make a good decision.
Right, understood. I'll make sure it gets to them as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
I think I would concur on the proposals. And if they don't have time to, obviously it's a tight time crunch and it's sort of the situation that we're in. But I think, and I think your characterization that right now we're in a purchasing process, but tomorrow we're in an HR process, I think that's largely accurate. But again, we don't have infinite flexibility to say, gee, I want to take the Schoberg-Eveshenk auditor candidate with the Moss Adams team, right? You can't really do that, right? And so while they're generally separate, they're not exclusively separate. And we're talking about stuff that I think is relevant, so one of Moss Adams' strongest features is that they've done so much similar business with so many cities, with a bunch of cities that are just like us here in California, and that's a strength, and the council ought to be at least cognizant of that. For example, right, or Baker Tilly's depth, or Schoberg-Eveshenk's intimacy with some of their clients, right? So it's not. I don't think it's irrelevant.
So what I hear, unless Chair, you're muted if you were speaking.
I am trying to be done by 4 because I didn't realize we'd be done much longer. And as I said, I have another appointment, but I don't want to condense this. And I could go up until 4 and then have either Allison or Eric take over.
I think we're moving to consensus, given if you concur. What I heard from 2 committee members is to make the full proposals, make the video or at least the audio available to the full council. And then we will properly separately provide with the staff report as well, the pulled out resume, so members don't have to thumb through the documents to find it, just to make it easier. So each council member would get access to those 3 documents as attachments or separately from the clerk and our staff. And I think there's consensus on that, so we can move ahead. In terms of the opening, I was thinking we'd take 15 minutes to lay out the process and what's happened to date, as well as the interview structure. It could be we add another 15 minutes up front for the committee to tee up what they see as the key differentiators for the full council's consideration. So then we really start the interviews roughly at 1:30. If each one's a half an hour with a single participant coming and going, I think the transitions between interviews will be quicker. So we're probably then wrapping up with the interviews by 3:10, 3:15, and then that leaves the council 45 minutes tomorrow to reach a decision and provide direction. And I think that schedule works, if that's amenable to the committee.
Is half an hour enough for the interviews?
Pretty short, isn't it?
I don't think so. Not if each council member is asking a question or wants to follow up.
Yeah.
It will be hard to limit it. That's one of my concerns.
So 2 things, Mr. Larson, am I to infer from your description is that you will be staffing that closed session tomorrow? Okay.
Correct.
And will any other staff be present either from Management Partners or from the city?
I believe Pete is available if appropriate and necessary. The clerk's office will be staffing the meeting
in the
but
usual
only for
closed
the
format. Okay,
convening way.
great. That's
and
very
the
helpful.
HR director could participate, but in general, staff and the attorney are trying to respect that this is an independent council appointment.
Super helpful. I'll just comment that I think 15 minutes is too long for you to set the stage. I think that should be done in an email with, you can have 1 slide in 5 minutes, but let's not belabor the process when, everyone's time is so valuable.
Okay.
So I think, based on my personal experience going through this just today, I think we might not need however much time you had at the end, 45 minutes to collectively make a decision. If part of the process, is that people sort of think as they go through. I'm just trying to figure out how to maximize time with each of the candidates.
Right.
So how about the committees setting the stage in terms of differentiating dynamics that influenced your discussion?
Great. May I nominate Councilmember Phil Seth? Because of your participation on the evaluation, to give a 5-minute overview of the process.
I can do it in 5 minutes.
Yeah, and then Chair Nist, do you want to outline? I'm sorry, jumping in here, but I know we're on a time crunch.
I'm delighted to have you do
and
it.
I haven't had lunch, so. And then maybe I'm just thinking about who would be best at what. And then Chair Nist, maybe you could talk about how the strengths and weaknesses, the strengths we see of each of the candidates we brought forward and things to think about. But if we bifurcate it that way, then I think we'll be ready to jump right in.
Right. I think this is a very knowledgeable group. Most it's not like we have new council members at the moment. They're very used to auditor and the angst that's gone on. So I think that moving in this direction is something everyone's agreed on, and we're ready to go with it without a whole lot of preamble. So I am a little concerned about the shortness of time, a half an hour for each one.
I think we've just bought it up to 40 minutes. That's my math, but let's see what Mr. Larson says.
Exactly the same as Councilwoman Cormack. I was thinking we really start at 1:15, just with log-on challenges, the process overview, and then the committee overview that we talked about, that the first interview would start at 1:15. It would end at 5 minutes to 2, with the second interviewing starting at 2, going to 2:40, the third interview starting at 2:45, going to 3:25, and then that leaves just over 30 minutes for the committee to reach a decision.
Okay.
Works
I
for
like
me.
40 minutes a lot better than 30. I thought
It's 40
we made
minutes,
it.
but yeah.
Yeah, we made it through 30 with each one of these today, but it was very regimented.
It was.
Right?
It was. And it won't be as regimented tomorrow, I realize. And
No.
we'll have random questions that come in, I'm positive. So
Right.
tomorrow, that means that Kyle, Haley, and
David.
just blanked on his name. Help me
David.
out. David will all be on the call, correct?
Separately, yes.
Separately, of course, right. Okay. And
And-
the information that Allison and others have requested will go out later this afternoon. Is that correct? Jessica?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So they should have it by the end of the day, hopefully.
I would hope to get at least the audio to the rest of the council members in the next couple of hours, 2 or 3 hours.
Okay, good.
And then may I impose and ask the committee, would you want to do open-ended questions, or would you each be willing to ask a structured question, given it is an appointment personnel process, and then we leave it open-ended questions for the
I'm
rest of
voting for
council?
structured. Try to keep it consistent. Having Allison and me ask the same questions of everyone makes such a difference. And
Yeah,
that
that
way
was good.
you're not hitting different topics in a different way. So I much prefer that. I don't know about the rest of you.
Agreed.
I thought that worked well.
Should we try to structure that for all participating council members?
That gives us the best compare and contrast. And then we can really, and that's so, and you notice how differently they answered our questions today. It was very revealing, I thought.
So even if we have 6 council members participating, they each ask one question. Each question is roughly 5 minutes in cycle time. That still leaves 10 minutes for follow-up, like you did occasionally today.
Or we could give them 3 minutes. That's what we give members of the public.
And also, I think that the 3 of us don't need to be as in-depth, because we've done that today. And that means that I sent it to you.
So maybe it's 5 or structured questions, 4 to 5.
I think
structured
5. I
questions.
think 5 questions would do it, but I do think assigning them to specific council members makes sense, and I think we should prioritize, as Chair has said, our other colleagues.
Agreed.
Okay. I think we're meeting your 4 o'clock deadline, Chairness.
Thank you. I'm sorry, and I feel like I'm living 2 lives this summer. And one life is, oh my God, I can't go to the beach. I've got to go to Zoom. Or I can't go to dinner. I have a Zoom meeting. So I don't know about you, Allison and Eric, but I'll bet you've noticed the same.
There's a beach in New England?
And Madam Chair, before we conclude, my recommendation would be, if Pete's available, he join us tomorrow as well to help wrap up the process. But nonetheless, I did want to recognize that for both the evaluation process and the interview process, we structurally chose to have a purchasing expert manage both of those because of the issues. And I just want to commend Pete for your work on that process.
Okay, so Pete, is Pete around somewhere?
Yes.
He's on the phone. He's on the Zoom. And you are available tomorrow, Pete, from 1 to 4?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Okay, great. And Pete, thank you so much. It was kind of a jerky start this morning where we didn't have the right connections, and then we tried to switch to a confidential line, and thank you, my husband, who's right behind me, who managed to pull it all together. So we now can fax and print, and we have a confidential connection. So we made
Got it all worked out.
Yeah, it worked out. Anyhow, thank you all so much. See you tomorrow at.
Janice, do we actually need to vote on the motion? Just.
We did it by consensus. And
okay, right.
If you're more comfortable voting, I'm fine.
No, I'm just asking a process
You all
question.
are doing that consensually. I didn't hear a no. So I think this is a consensual move toward how we will operate tomorrow. Anything else? Okay. Thanks a lot, Greg. Thank you, Pete. I can't see you, but I appreciate your support.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you to former Mayor Klein as well. Bye-bye, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Bye. See you. Okay.